Okay, is the mic working? Okay. All right. This is the July 9th, 2026 Town of Fishkill Planning Board meeting. Glad some of you could make it. Glad those of you here could make it. I'll call the meeting to order at a little bit behind schedule, but 7:10 p.m. We're probably going to do a little bit of shifting of the agenda, but let's do the Pledge of Allegiance before we get into that. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. So it looks like we have 5 voting members now. We are expecting 2 more, I believe. So we do have a quorum. So right now, if we do any votes, we'll have 5 potential votes. Also, under other business tonight, we are actually going to be considering canceling the August 13th meeting for various reasons, which we'll get into then. So if I can just get the consensus of the board to kind of skip around the agenda as needed so that we don't lose too much valuable time.
Sure. Yeah.
That's okay with everyone?
Yep. Sure.
The other thing I'll mention that I'm going to ask to put under other business is that the planning board received a referral from the town board regarding a draft local law about expiration of site plan approvals, which I personally have not actually even had time to look at. So what I'd like to do under other business is simply ask the board for some guidance on how we can work on an approach and a time frame for reviewing that. I'll also give any members who have had a chance to review it a chance to, make any comments you want, although as far as I'm concerned, they wouldn't be official to send to the town board at this point, because we need to do that as a whole board. So, okay, having said all that, we're going to have to hold off on the public hearing and see how that works out, but that's fine because the public hearing notice indicates that it starts as close to 7 p.m. as possible, and it's not possible to start it yet. The one trick is I'll have to keep track of my pages and agenda numbers as we're going along. Fred, that's what we understand.
Well, at least you came prepared with your cooler.
Yes.
You've been stuck for a lot longer.
Do you have any for us? Okay. Now we have 7 voting planning board members, so we have more than enough votes. All right. So, for you two who just walked in, what we're going to do is we can't start with the public hearing yet, so we're going to shift things around and go through what we can until the appropriate people are here for the public hearing. So the first thing we're going to do is under request for extensions of approval. The first one is Basis Industrial, Route 9D, Site Development Plan and Special Use Permit. Board to review the submission made by the applicant's representative on June 22nd, which is a request for a 6-month extension of the resolution of conditional final approval. So that's due to expire August 13th, I believe?
Yes.
All right. Well, welcome. Good seeing you again.
Good seeing you as well. For the record, Corey Salamo from Zarin & Steinmetz here tonight on behalf of Basis Industrial. We're here requesting a 6-month extension of time. We've gotten an email from the Department of Health saying they're approving our plans, but we've submitted them. We have not received them back yet, and we've made a subsequent submission to DOT on May 28th. and we have not heard any comments back from them on that application. So that's one of our conditions of approval, so we're just waiting on DOT at this point.
Good, okay. Any questions or comments from board members?
No, not at this time.
All right. Dominic, any thoughts or questions?
Approving the extension would be entirely appropriate at this time.
All right. And in your opinion, a 6-month extension would be appropriate?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there a motion then to approve a 6-month extension of the resolution of conditional final approval for a basis industrial Route 9D, which would go till February 13, 2027, if my calculations were correct?
So moved. Second.
Okay, Felix moves it. Anthony seconds it. Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That carries.
Great. Thank you very much for your time. Have a great
All
evening.
right,
Appreciate
thanks
it.
for coming in. Okay, the next request for an extension is 415, 453, Route 9, which is Duchess Mall site development plan approval. Board to review the submission made by the applicant's representative on June 24th, 2026. This is a request for 2 successive 90-day extensions. The board adopted the resolution of preliminary and conditional final approval way back on February 9th, 2023, I believe, and recently granted 2 consecutive 90-day extensions. Those expire July 28th, as far as I understand. So welcome. Why don't you just give us a quick update on where things stand with the
Sure.
project?
Sure. Good evening. My name is Allison Fausner. I'm an associate attorney with the law firm Cuddy & Fader, appearing on behalf of Hudson Properties. I thought it'd be best to start with an overview of where we've been with this project and the progress made to date by Hudson Properties. You may recall that this application originally came in with a contract vendee. Unfortunately, after the board granted approvals, that contract vendee then withdrew. Hudson Properties decided to perfect the approval. All material conditions have been satisfied. All outside agency approvals have been secured. The subdivision plat has been recorded and that's been perfected. All legal agreements have been perfected. The only outstanding condition continues to be the letter of credit. Hudson Properties is very committed to this site. I think that's demonstrated by the immense time and effort they've spent to perfect these approvals. They just need additional time in the marketplace to attempt to get a purchaser or a potential long-term lessee. So we're hoping to keep this approval current and hoping to get this extension tonight.
Any questions or comments from board members?
No.
I guess my question for Dominic would be, at this point, do you think virtually a 6-month extension in this case would be appropriate?
I think it would be. I think what's implicit in this process is Hudson Properties, of course, is the original property owner, the current property owner. As Ms. Fausner mentioned, the contract vendee was the original applicant and they withdrew, and the property owner is maintaining the approvals for the project. And what's implicit in that is that they're likely marketing it to someone that would come in and construct it. So it may take some additional time for that to materialize. So I think that since there is no change in law or change in circumstances in connection with this, it would be appropriate and they're legally entitled to the extension.
All right.
So we'll call it a 6-month extension?
Well, we'll use the applicant's terminology of 2 successive 90-day extensions, but it's basically the same thing.
I'm just wondering what's the difference.
Why would you like to make a motion on 2 successive 90-day extensions of the resolution of preliminary and conditional final approval for 415, 452 Route 9 at the Duchess Mall site, which would go till October 28th, 2026. No, sorry.
No.
January 28th, 2027. I was looking at alternate ones in the wrong color ink. That would go till January 28th, 2027. Sorry. Would someone like to move that?
So moved.
Second.
Felix moves it. And was that Bob seconding? Any further discussion?
No.
I have
Go ahead.
one question, and that is, if the 6-month extension expires, and the current property owner continues to market the property and there are no takers, how long do we hold, or how long can we extend this particular type of extension?
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of case law on this point. I mean, the approvals are essentially a property right. They're a property right that the applicant, in which case is the property owner, has. And so, in the absence of, anything that's defining as a term upper limit in the town code, the real operative issue is whether or not there's been a change in law. So, like, for instance, like if there was a change in zoning that would, somehow affect the project, whether it's use or bulk requirement that changed, or like a change in stormwater design, for instance, or a change in circumstances where a project went in nearby, in the interim, and as a result, like, this project has to be reevaluated because of it. In the absence of those things, you pretty much have to grant the extensions, because they have an entitlement to it, because they've obtained the approval. It's an actual legal right that they have.
So there is no limit to how far the extension can be extended out?
Not right now, but the town board has introduced the local law to put a limit on it, so.
Well, that's one of the reasons
I was just going
why-
to say that's probably what you'll discuss later on.
That's one of the
is that
reasons
they're
why I brought
considering
up
it.
this
Yes,
particular
no,
point.
thank you. I mean, it's, and it's pertinent for the applicant's counsel to be aware of that. The local law as written, if they haven't gotten a copy of it, they should, because it affects not future projects, but also currently pending projects.
I haven't seen a copy. I'm trying to get one, but I've watched the meetings, and I think it's a 2-year grandfathering clause,
I
so we've
will-
been
I
monitoring
will
that.
send it to you.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Anthony.
I had mentioned to a few of the planning board members that we're going to talk about the local law that was referred to us only in the sense of talking about when we're actually going to be able to review it, because I'm sure most of us, at least myself, have not had a chance to review it. So we can't really do it tonight. We might get some preliminary comments from some board members, but in my opinion, the board should hold off on sending any comments to the town board until the board as a whole can get together and decide what we want to tell the town board. So anyway, we're going to talk about that more under other business if anyone wants to stay around for that.
Oh, yeah. I think I get to stick around.
So that was a
you.
discussion comment. Does that answer your question?
Thank you, yes.
Any other discussion or comments?
No.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? That carries 7-0.
Thank you very much.
for
I appreciate
coming.
it.
Let's see, so do we have in the audience the representatives from 400 Westage? Yes, well, you do. While we're on a roll, if it's okay with you guys from 400, if we do one more, which is a fairly quick item on a request for readoption of approval?
Fine, thank you.
All right, and that'll help us get things moving along. So this is for Fishkill Medical Park subdivision. Board to review the submission made by the applicant's representative on June 18th. This is a request for readoption of resolution of preliminary and conditional final subdivision approval adopted by the board on December 11th, 2025, and it actually expired on June 11th, 2026. Welcome back, Jeff. Good to see you again. If you'd like to just give us a real quick update on status of conditions in the previous resolution.
Sure. I'll start with a mea culpa. When I calendared the expiration of the subdivision, I made a rookie mistake and calendared the date, not the submission date, to get back on the agenda. So that was that's on me. But so we expired. The subdivision expired. The site plan is still in effect, and we've been progressing through all of our permits. We have everything. We have our health department permit. We have half of our DOT permits. We're just waiting for the final signature on the highway work permit, so we're all but done, and with reapproval of the subdivision, we should hopefully be in pretty soon for final review and hopefully chairperson's signature on the approved site plan and subdivision maps.
Okay, thanks. Any questions or comments from board members?
No.
So, of course, this will require the drafting of a new resolution of reapproval, basically. So I'll just ask Dominic to outline that process a little bit.
Yes, no new application is required, but the board does have a process that's laid out in town code that allows for the readoption of a previously expired approval. The board's practice is to authorize a new resolution that would then be considered at next month's meeting. The resolution, there are no changed conditions. It really just lays out procedurally where you are in this process. And so if the board is comfortable, you could authorize that now. The difficulty would be is that the board may not have a quorum for the August meeting or may be canceling that meeting. What I would suggest is one of two things. You could either authorize that resolution and authorize the chair to sign it as one option, or depending on your timeline, is that if you're anticipating making a submission between now and September for obtaining final signatures, the chairman's signature rather, on the subdivision plat and the site plan, my suggestion would be is that those things could continue to be reviewed, notwithstanding the fact that the approval has expired. But of course, the chairman's signature would have to wait until the board authorized that resolution. You could either, it's kind of a now or later situation, but it's your pleasure.
Well, and also, as you mentioned, Dominic, the board is going to consider under other business the possible canceling of the August 13th meeting, which would then mean there might be, well, I don't want to get into the whole discussion because we're going to talk about that under other business, but that could involve either an alternate meeting date in August, if that's possible. It may not be. Or it could just mean canceling the August 13th meeting, and the next meeting would be September 10th, September 10th, at which point then we could have that draft resolution available then. So
We very much anticipate submitting for signature, really any day now, because DOT is in their last throes, so anything that would move this process forward would certainly enable us to get under construction sooner rather than later. But thank you.
So from what you were saying, all of the conditions that were in the resolution of subdivision approval are basically in a form that either have been or can be submitted, which would allow the planning board chair to sign the plat?
As soon as that, we get that final signature on the second DOT permit, yes, the letter's written, the appendices are all filled. I'm just waiting on the date of the actual highway work permit to put into the letter and submit back to you.
Yeah, well,
Mr. Chair,
there is some.
Would there be any change between the two resolutions?
The only
Besides
change,
the
the only
dates?
changes are the dates and the fact that the prior approval expired. And there's some other procedural things that are laid out, but there are not a single change in any of the conditions.
Yeah, so it's not really a question of it's difficult to put the resolution together. It's really a procedural question of when can we do it, and or should we shortcut the normal process. I tend not to like to do that because that sets precedents for other actions. So, I mean, my preference would be to basically, here would be my motion for you to consider to authorize our planning board attorney to draft a resolution readopting the resolution of preliminary and conditional final approval for the Fishkill Medical Park subdivision for consideration. Now, could we do this, Dominic, for consideration at the next available planning board meeting?
Of course.
Which means if we could reschedule the August meeting, which I think is unlikely, but it's a possibility, we could do that. Otherwise, it would probably be September 10th.
I mean, just out of curiosity, I have a question. I mean,
Mhm.
do we really need, this is just adopting the resolutions. Do we really need a meeting for that to happen?
Well, that's our normal practice and procedure, which I don't like to stray from. So do we need to? Do we legally have to? No.
Like, can we do it online through email? or
No.
something?
Oh, speaking to the microphone.
Oh,
So-
sorry. Can we do it by email or something? Like,
Oh, no, we do not do email voting. No, absolutely not. Some boards do that, but we have not authorized that to happen, and I would not want to start now. We're not in a pandemic anymore, and I don't want to get back into one. So that's my motion. Would somebody like to second it, or do you want, is there anyone who would like to try a different motion?
I'll second it.
Okay. So moved by me, seconded by Kevin. Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so that carries 7-0. Thank you. All right, so we will go back to where we were supposed to start. That would be with a public hearing on 400 Westage. Glad you guys made it through the traffic. This is for site development plan amendment. Applicant seeks to amend the existing site development plan approval for 400 Westage to construct a 4-story, 24,000 square foot building addition with other site plan elements, including realigning the main addition and subsurface stormwater detention at the existing medical facility located at 400 Westage Business Center Drive. Parcel for this proposal is tax map parcel number 615500955561, and it consists of 7.62 acres in the PSC Planned Shopping Center Zoning District. So first, is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Felix moves it.
Second.
Who seconded it? Fred?
Yep.
Fred seconded. Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So the public hearing is open. So I'll just ask the applicant team, welcome Karen again, to just give us a quick update on, or not an update, but a quick overview of the proposal so that anyone watching at home can get a better sense of the proposal.
Sure. My name's Karen Lobruto. I'm a planner with Labella Associates, and we're here representing 400 Westage Associates. I'm joined here by Neil Alexander, the attorney, and Joe Rodriguez, the architect. We thought it would be a good opportunity to have him go over the architectural changes, because I know you guys have had some questions in the past. And so just to kind of briefly go over the project, it's an existing medical office building, 72,000 square feet. We're proposing an addition at the rear along the property line with I-84. The addition's 24,000 square feet. We're proposing 315 parking spaces, and to allow for that, we're requesting 2 waivers. One is for their parking lot stall size, which would make our parking lot stall sizes consistent with the smaller sizes that are there today. And then also for the number of parking spaces, and we did previously submit a parking analysis that showed that there is adequate parking supply even with the development of this additional medical office building and 300 Westage, the hotel adjoining this site, to provide adequate parking supply for the demand that's needed. And in addition to that, in addition to the addition, there's a new porte cochere proposed to help create a better circulation between the buildings and a kind of arrival and drop-off spot. And then also there is a realignment of the access leading from the main Westage Drive into the site. Previously, it was kind of an irregular arrangement with cars kind of stopping and going and no one quite sure what they were doing. And this streamlines it and allows for clear stop and go, operations. We did add a speed bump, which was a request at the prior meeting, just to ensure that people won't be, rushing through there. So I'll just throw it to the architecture page here and have Joe go through that.
So in an effort then to kind of value engineer the overall building, there was an extensive curtain wall system used before. We went back to a more traditional masonry design instead that's going to then match the existing building as close as possible. The porte cochere as well went to a more streamlined, almost a prefabricated type of system there. We're eliminating a little bit of the pyramidal roof that's just beyond the porte cochere to kind of clean up that front elevation there as well. The footprint stayed the same. The porte cochere is still the same width and length as was shown previously, so there was not any additional curbing done there. As far as the interior of the building, we don't have tenants yet, so we do just show 2 suites per floor. So the addition is 6,000 square feet per floor, so a little less than 3,000 square feet each. We did already lock in our vertical circulation. We've eliminated any dead-end corridors as well by providing 2 separate stairwells and an elevator core as well. So we've done what we can on the interior, and these exteriors then we have modified to this more masonry design. We've provided awnings at each entrance, and we'll be providing lighting, of course, as well. If there's any questions.
And I'll just add to try to assist in understanding the awnings, the emergency exits, the entries, et cetera, drop off and pickup locations. We've made some call outs on the site plan per the request at the last meeting.
Good. All right, any questions from board members at this point?
No.
Okay. What I'd like to do is see if there are any members of the audience who would like to speak at tonight's public hearing. If there are, I will read our rules of conduct of public hearings, but I don't see anybody here. So unless they're all stuck in the traffic jam, which by now I certainly hope for their sake they're not, I won't go ahead and read the rules and regulations for the public hearings. And it looks like, unless the board members do have any additional questions or comments, we do have a project review later on the agenda for any site plan related questions.
No, I mean, my question was, what were the changes since the last meeting? And they've already touched on that, so I think they've already answered that.
Yeah, and I took a look through the revised site plans, and they look like they match up pretty well. So at this point, I'll turn to our attorney, Dominic. Shall we close the public hearing tonight since nobody showed up?
And also, I would note that there was no correspondence or requests to the board to hold the public hearing open. So as a result, given the fact that there's been duly noticed public hearing and no one showing, the board would be in a position to close the public hearing at this time.
All right, would somebody like to make a motion to close the 400 Westage public hearing tonight?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Bob moves it and Fred seconds it. Any further discussion?
No further discussion.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? So the public hearing is completed, and we will see you a little bit later, actually fairly soon, hopefully, to go through the further project review.
Great, thank you.
All right, thanks. So we are at project reviews now, and the first project review is for Fishkill Commerce Center, site development plan, floodplain development permit, and freshwater wetlands watercourse water body permit. Board to review the submission made by the applicant's representative on June 24th, 2026, and a draft full environmental assessment form, Part 2. Welcome, Jennifer. Good to see you again.
Good evening. Good to see you too. Thank you. Yeah, that traffic was a bear, but I'm glad we were able to make it. So yes, we did submit for tonight's meeting a response to the MJ Engineering comments that were received before the last meeting. And included in that response is also responses to several of the comments that came up from the board members during last month's meeting. That is in the McFarland-Johnson June 24th memorandum. The first item that was addressed was in response to the inquiry about salting of the driveway and the roadways during the winter in relation to protection of the aquifer. So what McFarland-Johnson did is researched some reduced salt management plans that might be available that can be implemented on the site for de-icing and whatnot during the winter, and identified the Adirondack Road Salt Reduction Task Force Assessment recommendations from 2023. So you do have that in your materials, and the applicant is prepared to implement that type of reduced salt program at the site. There was also a question about the types of tenants that we anticipate might occupy the site. As we've discussed in prior meetings, there are no current tenants identified. There is space for up to 3 tenants, I believe it is. So what we've asked Scanel, the contract vendee here, to do is to project based on the current market and what they're seeing in the market, some potential likely tenants, and you see that on page 2 of the McFarland-Johnson memo. And it's really a wide range of users, mostly auto parts, automotive supply chain logistics, warehousing, retail warehousing, and perishable food product storage. And you can see that in the region through the Lesser Evil food warehousing site in Brewster, the Mopar and Stellantis warehouse in East Fishkill. There's the Prime Source warehouse in Montgomery for building materials, Tesla in Newburgh, Home Depot in Wawayanda, and Walgreens in Newburgh. So just a sort of a cross-section of the types of tenants that have executed leases in the region over the past 5 years. And then you see on the second page there towards the bottom, additional tenants that Scanel is aware of have been interested in another spec building in Newburgh. So again, Walmart for retail warehousing, Anheuser-Busch for beverage warehousing, and ThyssenKrupp for building material warehousing. So those are the types of tenants that we would anticipate would be interested in this site. Obviously, we don't have a crystal ball and can't guarantee that, but hopefully that provides a good perspective. And then in terms of storage, because I understand the question came up in terms of what are the likely products that might be stored in those buildings, we also addressed that in the McFarland-Johnson memo on page 3 towards the bottom to note that to the extent there's any potentially hazardous materials that would be stored, the storage and handling of those materials are regulated by a number of different regulatory entities, including DEC and the New York State Uniform Fire Prevention and Building Code. There's a host of requirements that would be in play for the storage and handling of any type of hazardous material that might be stored at the site as a result of the tenant use. Lastly, we did submit from Terracon a response to HydroQuest's latest memo. And I should mention, by the way, with us tonight from McFarland-Johnson is Owen Harder, and also with us tonight from Terracon is Joe Robichaux. So we have consultants here that can answer any questions that you may have. Joe was happy to walk you through the memo that was provided by Terracon in response to the HydroQuest memo, if that's something that the board is interested in. And
Sure.
I see Jonathan shaking, with
Yeah.
Chairman Cantor shaking his head yes. So I'll ask Joe to come up and give a brief summary of the points that Terracon responded to from the HydroQuest memo. Thank you.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you very much. Thanks for this opportunity to speak to you tonight. And essentially that memo from HydroQuest, there were 2 items that they had asked about, and we covered those in our response. The first was around potential impacts to the underlying aquifer related to the bulk fill placement. So to just summarize, again, the subsurface conditions at this site, there's about 10 to 15 feet of granular soils, sands, silty sands, over a deep sequence of silt and clay soils down to depths of about 90 feet. And then that interfaces with the sand and gravel layer, and that's where the principal aquifer is located, the aquifer of interest for this project. When you put fill soils on a site, which is what's proposed here, upwards of 10 feet of fill, that imposes load on the existing soils. And the silt and clay soils are specifically subject to consolidation or settlement when you put load on them. So that load, though, decreases with the depth below grade. So I was thinking of an analogy. If you were near a source of noise and you were close to it, it would be loud closest to the source. If you were 100 feet away, that sound would be, the magnitude of that sound would be lower. It would be less. Similarly, when you put load on the ground surface, the upper soils feel more of that load, and as you get deeper below the ground surface, the load decreases, and therefore the settlement of the soil or the consolidation also decreases. So it's good to understand that the sand and gravel that contains that principal aquifer is about 90 feet below the ground surface here. When you put that 10 feet of soil, we expect those silt and clay soils to consolidate somewhere in the range of 2 to 4 inches. Okay, we're not talking about feet of settlement. And therefore, the impacts to that aquifer that we would expect that may come from some type of compression of the soils that the aquifer is located within, those soils, that load was just not going to get to those soils to impact the aquifer at all. So that was the first piece of the first comment in the HydroQuest memo. Does anybody have any questions around that?
Load. So does it depend on what type of load is going to be inside?
It doesn't actually, because the biggest load that this site is going to see is when you put the fill. So think of this 10-foot, we're going to generalize what the fill is going to look like on the site. It's going to be 10 feet high, it's going to be some distance wide and some distance long. That is the biggest load that the site's going to see. When you actually build the building, the foundations are much smaller area, the loads are more concentrated, but their load magnitude does not go into the ground as deep as a big wide load like the fill is going to do. So analyzing that fill, go ahead.
So if there's machinery being stored in the heavy machinery,
sure,
would that make a difference on the load?
Same thing. It's a discrete area that you would have a machine within that building, or pallets, or whatever, if it's storage. Still very small load in comparison to the 10 feet of fill that's going to go on to build the site.
And another question I have is, what is the fill that you're bringing in? I remember talking about it.
Yeah, a long time ago.
I have no recollection of what it was.
A while ago, yeah.
Like, what type of fill is being brought in?
Sure. I can speak to the recommendations that we made in our geotechnical report, which was to import granular fill, clean sand and gravel type
It's going
of
to be
material.
sand and gravel too?
Sand and gravel, structural fill that can be placed in lifts, compacted to get the proper compaction so it can support the building.
So the bottom line basically is, on top of the fill, the building has to be designed in a way to support whatever is inside it. It's really not the fill's job to support it, it's the building's job.
The fill, you're right. The fill that we place will support the loads from the foundations, that 10 feet of imported material. The ground below it, the silt and clays, likely won't even see load from the building once the building's constructed over those imported materials, just because the magnitudes aren't great enough to force the forces down into the soil below grade.
I have a question, and at the risk of perhaps getting a bit too granular, but you did, I think, 17 bores in the space where you intend to locate the structure.
Yeah.
And all but one indicated the clay silty layer.
Correct.
At the appropriate depths, various different depths. But the one which was B17, what did that indicate? And is that possibly an indication that there may be other areas where there is no, and maybe at various different levels, where there is no silty, where there's not that stratification that represents a certain amount of permeability?
Sure, so very good question. Test borings are, again, they're discrete samples at a certain location. The way that the soils were deposited in this area, we would expect that below that, at B17, I believe we stopped at 22 feet below grade. I would expect that within the next 10 to 15 feet, we would get into that silt and clay layer. It's just the way that it's deposited. You wouldn't expect to see like a void or some fall off, some valley in that silt and clay, because it was placed as a lake deposit. So if you think about a lake, seasonally, sediments come into the lake and they settle out over time. And then the next season, the sediments come in and settle out over time. And it's usually pretty uniform. So that you might have some areas where things dip and dive a little bit, but I would fully expect that if we went back to B17 and drilled that a little bit deeper, that we would get into the silt and clay.
Mm-hmm. And the other question that I had related to the total fill levels, the other, the Home Depot, the mall that was there prior to the Home Depot, do you have any idea how much fill level they put in there in order to them to be able to structure those buildings, which are essentially, I mean, not right next door, but
Sure.
but
I specifically don't. I don't know if you have any, if we have any intel on that, but I can, outside of that being an example, I could speak to some examples of projects that I've done over a very similar stratification where we've placed fills to create building paths for warehouses. And we're taking the same approach where we're going to put the fill on, we're going to let the soil settle out from the weight of the fill, and then you build the building on top of that so that the building doesn't settle.
yeah, my thought process was more in terms of overall environmental impact. And from a CEQA point of view, do we consider that potential environmental impact significant, given the fact that we're putting 305,000 tons, I guess it is, of, I forget the metric, but a significant amount of fill? That, to me, seems environmentally significant, but maybe it isn't as significant when we consider what already done next door. I mean, I'm just trying to.
Sure. No, and I understand the direction of the question. I could say from a geotechnical standpoint, it's a very common application and project type for us. I can't speak to what an environmental impact the fill placement will have myself, but I agree that this doesn't seem like it's an unprecedented type of project in this area. So from, again, from a geotechnical standpoint and from impacts to the aquifer namely, which is what we were tasked with looking at, we don't see any real concerns for that.
Yeah, Kevin, I think that is a key to the question, is that this proposed warehouse is entirely over an underlying aquifer, whereas the other one is basically over already disturbed shopping center foundation. It's hard to tell what was under that, that dilapidated building when it was pristine, if it was ever a pristine site. But it's a totally different type of natural feature that we're dealing with this project.
Yeah, it's I learned a lot from going through the detailed analysis that you guys had presented over the last 2 or 3 months. And one of the things that seemed to be in the documentation was that the site, including how Clove Creek runs, seems to have been changed over the last 100 years. So at some point in time, Clove Creek, according to the documentation that you presented, seems to have been manually adjusted. So how Clove Creek runs. So I don't know to what extent that entire area has already been disturbed, including how Clove Creek runs. Now, the fact that we have the significant aquifer in play is a fact that's been shown over the last, at least the last 40, 50 years in terms of various different studies that have been done in that area. But in my mind, when I think about 305,000 tons of fill, that's an environmental impact, a significant environmental impact. And if I have a significant environmental impact, then I think from an environmental perspective, I need to consider that as significant.
So do you want to go on with the rest of your report?
Sure, we can go to the second piece is the potential for long-term settlement due to existing subsurface conditions. So the soft silt and clay soils on the site, if there was some concern that the building itself was going to, the building or the site, the finished appurtenances, the pavements, light poles, et cetera. If there was a concern that the soft silt and clay soils are going to consolidate and continue to settle long-term, that'll be realized when we place the fill and monitor the settlement of the fill. We expect it to take upwards of 2 to 3 months for that to happen. But once that's happened, the installation of the building and those site appurtenances will not cause any further settlement beyond that estimated in the report. So a typical building construction, it has a settlement magnitude typically of about 1 inch in total. So we would expect that you'd have 1 inch or less settlement just from normal building construction. That's a typical benchmark for structural construction, but it won't be related to anything with the underlying silt and clay soils, because we'll take the settlement out of them by placing the fill and letting it settle and watching it and not starting construction until that's complete.
How long do you watch it?
Until it stops. But it's typically about 2 to 3 months.
So, okay. You guys are talking about the soil and everything else. I still have a kind of thought of, the metric tons of concrete, the building, what's going to be stored in the building. And also, I'm just wondering, I didn't get a chance to ask the hydrologist about, if the aquifer lowers, it gets water use, the water that's under there goes down, will that affect the settling of all that soil above it?
So, unless you have some, are there plans in the future for some type of major connection to that aquifer that the town believes it's going to drain the aquifer and create a condition such as that? It wouldn't be because of this project. The project itself will not even be connecting to that aquifer in any way, shape, or form. So, in all honesty, I wouldn't expect that you're going to have that significant of a loss from that aquifer where you're going to lose ground underneath the buildings that overlie the aquifer.
Well, one thing maybe to add to what Bob was saying is that our consulting hydrogeologist, Paul Rubin, indicated the potential importance of the underlying aquifer as a future possible public water supply source. And so the applicant has indicated at other meetings that you guys are willing to work with the town on the possibility of preserving potential access to the aquifer, and that may be through the recreational trail easement on the northern part of the property. So that's kind of being worked on and discussed with the town as part of this process. I don't think the town has had any specific plans to use that aquifer as a drinking water supply source, but having, heard about it through this project and the review process, it certainly is a consideration. So, I think it's a good question as to whether significant withdrawal of water from the aquifer, or what would be significant in terms of answering Bob's question, in terms of how much further subsidence might occur under the building in that case.
Yeah, it's a great point, but it's very large. I would see that as a very large future type scoping exercise for the town when you're looking at the potential impacts to many structures that overlie the aquifer currently. So that would have to be taken into consideration, absolutely, for the future.
Yeah, and there are probably a lot of studies of the aquifer that would need to be done in order to put it into that kind of status.
Figure out what you can take and not impact existing structure.
Yeah. Good question, Bob.
Do we know if that aquifer that underneath this building is the same one where the village is getting their water from, which is a mile down the road?
There are, my understanding, there's a number of wells that the town uses for water supply. They're not specifically at this project site, but they are connected to that aquifer.
And this is not connected to the town water one across the street?
I can't answer, I don't know that answer.
The aquifer?
Snook Road.
Well,
We have a well in Snook Road,
yeah,
which is less than half a mile, or even less than that, from this property.
my understanding is that that's part of a different aquifer system than the Sprout Brook system on this side of Route 9, but I'm no expert in it.
There is a piece of documentation in the material that they sent us that shows the Snook Road aquifers and the areas around the Snook Road wells and the areas around the wells that must be protected, and this does not encroach above surface. Below surface, a different question.
Well, we have the town, I'm just talking about the town well, not
Yeah,
the individual wells.
I'm talking about the Snook Road town wells, and I'm talking about the Brinkerhoff wells as well, which are a little further away.
We're going
Right.
through the material, we have the entire environmental assessment
Yeah.
report here. and we're going through, and Joe's going to go through his prior memos. I believe we do have that mapped in our documents.
That's what I was alluding to.
Right, we're just trying to fit
And by the way,
answer to you.
thank you very much for the
Sure.
copies.
Yes. You can tell, I like paper too.
Yeah, it looks like the Merritt wells are the closest wells that are mapped to the site, and then the Brinkerhoff wells are a little bit of a distance off.
But you also have, okay, now you're talking, Merritt is a little bit farther away, but we have a well right next door, or,
I think the question is not about the distance of the wells in proximity to the project, but if they're pulling from the same aquifer.
Yes, that's my understanding, that the wells that are existing that are being used in, sure. Okay, thanks. The wells that are, that we're speaking of are connected to that principal aquifer, yes. Thank you for clarifying.
yeah, but we have the town, the village wells down here.
Those are close road wells. Yeah, yeah.
And then we have the stuff, and we have
All right. Well, so those were some interesting questions. I think we will be talking more about some of these things during our review of the EAF Part 2, but is there anything you want to go through at this point before we get into other aspects of the review?
Yeah, I think it's important to just summarize that the information that we obtained on the site through our test borings, the publicly available information, the studies done by USGS and others, our test borings line up very well with the previous studies. And based on that information and based on the project as it's currently planned, even with the fills, we don't anticipate any significant impacts to the aquifer underneath this site.
All right. I'll just indicate that Paul Rubin, our consulting hydrogeologist, couldn't be here tonight, but he did just request that the board refer back to his previous reports that he's already provided with us with his discussions and recommendations. So we can certainly take all that into consideration as we go through the EAF.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, that was very good.
So that was everything that we submitted for tonight's meeting. We are looking forward to the board's discussion of the EAF Part 2. If you recall, we did this a little over a year ago on this project, and it was a helpful process. And I think we liked the back and forth that we were able to provide during that discussion, if I recall correctly. As the board went through each question, you had given us an opportunity to provide any response if we had any, and I would ask that the board allow us that opportunity as you discuss it tonight as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. Well, first, we do have a memo from MJ, so I'll ask Dennis and Anisha to just quickly summarize that memo, July 7th, 2026.
All the information, I believe there was no new plans. The majority of our comments are technical, and as I stated in their response letter, they're going to address most of those at the next submission.
As for the secret comments, I think I'll reserve those comments for us going through the EAF process and seeing what the outcomes are of the board. But I'm sure you have gotten a chance to read the comments that we provided, and we will discuss those as the comments come up during the review process.
Thank you.
Meanwhile, any questions or comments from planning board members, or should we go right into the EAF? All right, Anisha, you want to guide us through? And in this particular case, I would suggest that we go through each question on the EAF Part 2, allow planning board members to provide input, for each item, if there are any questions or comments, and as well as questions from the applicant would be allowed during that process.
Sure. The first question is impact on land, and we've identified yes for that question. Is the board comfortable with having yes for?
Yes, I am.
1A, the proposed action may involve construction on land where depth to water table is less than 3 feet. The answer for that one, or the selection for that one, is small impact.
Where the answers are no, I guess you could kind of skip through
Yeah,
those.
we'll do those ones.
Yeah.
To E, the proposed action may involve construction that continues for more than 1 year or multiple phases. Small impact. Other impacts, the proposed project would disturb approximately 24 acres through major site grading, including the importation of 305,000 cubic yards of fill, which could raise the site by an average of 4 feet. The proposed project includes construction of 388 square feet of warehouse, which could result in permanent wetland disturbance. For that one, we have identified moderate to large impact, subject to change based on discussion from the planning board.
So, any reactions to that? Any comments on that? I think normally, well, in past practice, we've kind of tried to, in that category, moderate to large, tried to narrow it down as to moderate or large. Not that either one necessarily would indicate significance, because that would include other factors. But do you have any sense of whether that might be considered moderate versus large?
My recommendation was moderate. However, that was removed based on this discussion.
I think that was based also partly on Paul Rubin's recommendation in his report, which I haven't had a chance to really talk about, but I think I would prefer not removing the moderate if it's moderate and indicating large if it's large. But this is good because it gives the board a chance to kind of weigh in as we're discussing it. I think my own answer to that one would have been in the moderate category.
Well, this is, my previous comments in this regard were essentially my own thought process in terms of determining whether this is moderate or large. And I was trying to compare it to some disturbances that have already taken place in that particular general area. Now, it is 305,000. I think it might, it was mentioned earlier that it might raise 10 feet.
Yes, that is correct.
Instead of the 4 feet. So to me, that's very significant. Now, I don't know whether that, is larger.
Well, what we're trying to cut first is whether it's moderate or large, and then after that decision is made, whether it's large or not, it may or may not be significant. That's up to the board to determine. But in the simplified checklist format that they give us, the first thing we do is we try to categorize it as much as we can as to whether it's moderate or large. In most cases, in my opinion, if we're considering it moderate, it probably would not raise to the level of significance. But if it's large, then it may or may not have significant impacts. But it's more a question of, well, what are the impacts that we're talking about? So you can't just say, well, it's significant. We have to really go through it in more detail. So
a large impact doesn't automatically mean significance. Something could be moderate and also significant, or it could be large impact but not significant. So the first step here is to identify whether or not we consider those to be moderate or large, and then in the end, we decide if there's of their significance.
Dominic, yeah, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, no, that's entirely, I mean, it's fairly nuanced, because you would think that
Apparently,
large would be automatically significant, but that's not the case. And it requires a bit of analysis, and as Anisha and the chair, are pointing out, is that once you identify, I would agree that it's unlikely if it's moderate that it would be significant impact. It could be, but it's probably not likely. But the real focus should be on the large impacts. And, how do I say this? It also could be a potential significant impact, but because of aspects of the project as they're proposing, the significance of it could be dropped down because of what they're proposing to do as they've developed the project. So that adds an additional layer of complexity on deciding whether or not impacts are significant. It's like it might be significant without aspects of the project, but things that they are doing to mitigate their impacts could lower the environmental impact so that it is no longer significant. That's the...
Yeah, that's an interesting nuance. I was using the term significant and as, the same as large.
Right. Which,
I understand the nuance now. Thank you
right.
for that clarification. Now, I do think that we need to consider the potential public's perspective here. So if you have a vision of 24 acres being disturbed and 24 acres being raised by, which may be wrong, but that vision, it may be the 24 acres being raised by 10 feet, that may be a significant, from a public point of view, that may be considered a large impact. Now, whether technically that's significant or not, I understand that nuance now.
Yeah, let's try to avoid using the common English term significant, because that have its own implications.
I understand the nuance.
And try to stick to the seeker implications of what is a significant impact. And also, let's try, although we will at some point, whether it's during an environmental impact statement process, if the board decides to go with a positive declaration, or a normal public hearing, which would happen at some point after issuing a negative declaration, if that's what the board decides to do. We'll be able to hear from the public, but that should not in any way dictate the board's position on these. We always ask for and appreciate input from the public, especially in terms of informational facts that we may not have heard before. But the public's opinion is entirely different from factual information. So factual information, really, we can only look to the record that we have in front of us, which is significant in the common term of how long this project has been before the board and how much material we have gotten. And believe me, in preparing for reviewing this EAF, I virtually looked back through almost everything that we've gotten. So we have to take all that into account. So I don't know what the board feels about, should we be indicating moderate versus large impacts as we have done in the past?
I would say large.
Large.
300,000 cubic yards, 30 cubic yard truck, that's 10,000 trucks worth of fill.
How many trucks?
Well, 300,000 cubic, what, 305,000 cubic yards? A 30 cubic yard dump truck?
Yeah, that's...
10,000 trips.
I also think, I understand, I got a feeling that Kevin, I'm trying to understand this because, like, we're talking about objective, subjective, and for the public, something that you're trying to objectify is really subjective to other people. And like you said, the public perception of, a certain amount of fill and dirt on the aquifer and everything else. So it's like you said, the nuances is kind of interesting because
yes,
I'm sitting here kind of like, oh, okay.
And it is subjective in the sense that you guys are the decision makers, and when it comes to this, of course, you have to base your decision on the information that's before you.
Yeah.
It can't just be arbitrary, but,
Yes.
you know, this is why they pay you the big bucks.
All right. Well, I don't, like I said, you know, I guess like what he was saying in his statement, it's not really arbitrarily, he's reading the thing and saying, you know, that this much fill, as dirt is coming in, is
That's
not
his-
like something he's just making up.
No, then that's his conclusion. I mean, or the board's, I mean, if that's the consensus of the board, that's the consensus of the board.
So Dominic, would it be possible for you to kind of run through the criteria in seeker for determining significance briefly, like summarizing? Do you have like that in front of you?
Well, sure. I mean, you know, determining significance, you're deciding, you know, between a negative declaration, which is a finding of no significant environmental impact, compared to a positive declaration where there is you're not saying that there actually is environmental impacts, but that there's the potential for one or more significant environmental impacts. That's the distinction.
Yeah, and then there's an actual list that seeker has that helps provide guidance to boards on determining that significance.
Let me see if I can find that.
Yeah, I should memorize the actual section numbers, but meanwhile, we can come back to that as you're looking for it, but just keep that in mind, that there are actual criteria in seeker for determining significance. So let's go on to the next category, because I don't know that I would agree to the large, but it sounds like there's a consensus from the rest of the board on calling that large.
So I've identified large for that H in question number 1. Item number 2, we've selected no impact for geological features, The third being impacts on surface water, and we've identified yes, with small impacts for item number B, which is the proposed action may result in an increase or decrease of over 10% more than 10 acres increase or decrease in surface area or body of water. For that, we've identified small impact. Item number D, under 3, the proposed action may involve construction within or adjoining a freshwater or tidal wetland or in the bed or banks of any other water body. Small impact. Item number H, also small impact. The proposed action may cause soil erosion or otherwise create a source of stormwater discharge that may lead to siltation or degradation of receiving water bodies. Item number I, the proposed action may affect the water quality of water bodies within a downstream of the site of the proposed action. Item number L, other impacts. The proposed action has the potential to result in permanent wetland or wetland buffer disturbance, including construction adjacent to Clove Creek. Additional impacts include extensive site grading and an increase in impervious surface coverage. That we identified as moderate impact.
Oh, sorry. So you would consider that moderate?
And just not to stop your role, so to speak, but I do have the criteria up for when you're ready later, if you would like.
Okay, thanks. Do you want to do that now, unless there are questions on this category? So we're considering the other impacts on this one as moderate? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Dominic.
Okay, so the criteria for determining significance. To determine whether a proposed type 1 action or unlisted action may have a significant adverse impact on the environment, the impacts that may be reasonably expected to result from the proposed action must be compared against the criteria in this subdivision. The following list is illustrative, not exhaustive. These criteria are considered indicators of significant adverse impacts on the environment. 1, a substantial adverse change in existing air quality, ground or surface water quality or quantity, traffic or noise levels, a substantial increase in solid waste production, a substantial increase in potential for erosion, flooding, leaching, or drainage problems. 2, the removal or destruction of large quantities of vegetation or fauna, substantial interference with the movement of any resident or migratory fish or wildlife species, impacts on a significant habitat area, substantial adverse impacts on a threatened or endangered species of animal or plant, or the habitat of such a species, or other significant adverse impacts to natural resources. 3, the impairment of the environmental characteristics of a critical environmental area, which does not apply here. 4, the creation of a material conflict with a community's current plans or goals as officially approved or adopted. 5, the impairment of the character or quality of important historical, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources, or of existing community or neighborhood character. 6, a major change in the use of either the quantity or type of energy. 7, the creation of a hazard to human health. 8, a substantial change in the use or intensity of use of land, including agricultural, open space, or recreational resources, or in its capacity to support existing uses. 9, the encouraging or attracting of a large number of people to a place or places for more than a few days, compared to the number of people who would come to such place absent the action. 10, the creation of a material demand for other actions that would result in one or more of the above consequences. 11, changes in 2 or more elements of the environment, no one of which has been a significant impact on the environment, but when considered together result in a substantial adverse impact on the environment. Or 12, 2 or more related actions undertaken, funded, or approved, none of which would have a significant impact on the environment, but which, when considered cumulatively, would meet one or more of the criteria. And that one doesn't apply either.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, Anisha, you want to go on?
You're good. The fourth item is impacts on groundwater. We've identified yes, with small impact to item number F. The proposed action may require bulk storage of petroleum or chemical products over groundwater or an aquifer. For that, we've identified small impact. For item number H, other impacts, the proposed project is located entirely within the aquifer protection overlay and would introduce hundreds of thousands of square feet of new impervious surface, extensive fill placement that would permanently alter existing groundwater infiltration patterns and may permanently remove access to the underlying high yield aquifer, as supported by the HydroQuest letter dated 6/11/26. For that one, I've identified large impact.
What I would suggest, though, is the end part of that sentence saying, and may permanently remove access to underlying high-yield aquifer, which is what HydroQuest brings up in the report, but I believe that the applicant is making good attempts to try to resolve that issue, so I would either somehow separate that statement out so it would be somewhere else, or and phrase it differently, or just strike that part of the sentence.
I do want to point out that this section is not speaking of the mitigation measures proposed by the applicant. It is merely referencing the potential impacts. As it pertains to the potential mitigation, we can speak about that in the non-significance if we get there.
Well, yeah, although listening to what Dominic was saying, I think part of the process is taking into consideration potential mitigating measures that have been incorporated into the project or are being currently worked on to be incorporated.
And that can be elaborated in Part 3.
Yes, absolutely. But I think that's why including that part of the statement and including that as large, I don't think would be appropriate in this particular box. So if we want to address it, it probably should be put some separately and maybe have its own box. But I don't know, that's getting a little complicated.
Chairman Cantor, if I could just address that as well. There is New York State case law that supports exactly what you're stating, that, as an application progresses, the proposed action changes as well. It changes to include all of the elements, like mitigation measures, that are proposed during the course of the application review. For example, our willingness to work with the town to maintain access to the site for the potential for a future public water supply. So that would be considered part of the proposed action that's being analyzed in the EAF Part 2.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to mention that. The other thing,
1997 Merson versus McNally.
look at this
You
guy.
know, and
All right.
yeah, no,
That's
no,
why
you know.
Dominic gets paid the big bucks.
No, no, I don't know about that, but I mean, she's absolutely correct. I mean, that was a case that held that, if a project has potential significant impacts, and then through project changes as the project goes through an open and deliberative process, it is the very nature of the process that is supposed to, make projects more palatable and reduce their impact on the environment. And so the board, and what that case stood for was that it is an option for the board to consider those measures as mitigating impacts to reduce the level of the environmental impact to below significance, and thus adopt a negative declaration. It is the option.
Thank you. The other point I wanted to mention was the reference to infiltration. The statement is that there's extensive fill placement would permanently alter existing groundwater infiltration. At last month's meeting, we talked about, and I thought I recalled Mr. Rubin acknowledging this, that there is currently no infiltration on site because of those clay soils. And I'm sure Owen or Joe could speak to this better than I can, but we talked about the fact that the fill placement wouldn't alter the groundwater infiltration because there's no infiltration occurring currently. And I'll turn it to Owen if he has any more specific technical information.
Sure. So as the infiltration tests and percolation tests that we did on site showed, there's very little infiltration due to the clay soil. So the entire stormwater design is based on having zero infiltration in the proposed condition to match what's existing out there right now. So our stormwater design, it consists of wet ponds and bio retention basins to kind of filter that water and get it back to the wetlands in Clove Creek. So it's apples to apples. There's no infiltration now and there won't be in the future. So that's the proposed design there.
So there are several aspects of the way this other impacts H is worded that I think we need to revise. Something to the effect that extensive fill placement could alter could scratch the existing groundwater infiltration part, could affect drainage patterns.
Yeah, may or could instead of would.
And take out the reference to the infiltration. And I also don't think it would be appropriate to remove access to underlying high-yield aquifer, given the current status of discussions of the project and the potential access that the town actually could obtain through the recreational trail easement on the northern part of the site.
We could turn that into potentially a positive statement by saying,
Yeah.
Access will be potential access will be maintained as a result of the applicant working with the town.
Yeah, or applicant is working with the town to provide potential access to the aquifer through the proposed recreational trail easement. I think if we make these adjustments in the wording, we've already indicated in the earlier question that I didn't agree with, but the board has felt that there's large impact with the amount of fill placed. In terms of the impact on the groundwater, I don't think that would go to the large category. I think that if we adjust the wording, we could probably consider that moderate.
I would agree with you there on that, on this particular point. And I think the mitigation actions that the applicant has taken, not the least of which is the, you know, the maintaining the well and that sort of thing, I think is indicative of that.
So any objections to modifying the wording as we outlined and indicating this as moderate?
No.
Okay. Do you have that? Okay, thanks, Anisha.
So for item number 4, H, moderate impact.
Moderate.
Perfect.
Yeah, I actually had a question about, if we're done with H, I did have a question about F. We don't know who the tenants are at the moment. And it was, I think it was in the comment letter as well, or in the response letter, that, you know, don't know who the tenants may be. There may be some storage of petroleum or chemical products. This building is over an aquifer. If, unlikely, but if all the tenants were storing petroleum or chemicals, would we look at this project, which is a possibility, would we look at this question differently?
Yes.
Very good
So
point.
if it were to be all petroleum storage, then it potentially could be a moderate to large impact.
And without knowing the tenants, that's a possibility.
Yes. So would you suggest changing from small impact for item number H to moderate to large?
I would think so, until we know otherwise. I think we have to. I mean, is it likely? I don't know. Maybe not, but I don't know. They don't know.
If I may, one option that the board could consider would be to essentially conduct an evaluation when a actual tenant is identified. There are other municipalities that require, in the case of where you have, you know, a development that's being targeted for a class of tenants, but where the actual tenant's use, and it could be what they store in the building, or also, like, you know, their hours of operation or their anticipated, you know, truck times, like when they come in and they leave. Like the board could, you know, as part of any eventual approval for the project, include a condition that says when the specific tenant is identified, they have to come in, make a showing that they're within the thresholds of what was previously evaluated, or not, you know, and in which case if they aren't, you know. And so that it would be another way to approach this, rather than, for lack of a better term, thinking of it as a worst-case scenario in this instance.
So the suggested response here would be leave as is, or?
Yes, and
based
also
on what we know today?
Leave it as is, but also perhaps elucidate that as part of the Part 3 analysis that identify the fact that when a particular tenant is intending to come in, that there would be an analysis done at that time of their particular uses within these thresholds.
I would be okay with it being captured in writing there.
That's a good idea, and we could actually say, refer to Part 3 analysis for further information or something like that. All right.
Item number 5, impacts on flooding. We've identified yes, with small impacts for item number D, which is the proposed action may result in or require modification of the existing drainage patterns. We've identified small impact for item number E, The proposed action may change floodwaters flow and contribute to flooding. We've identified large to moderate impact for item number G, which is the proposed action is entirely within the 100-year floodplain and requires 305 cubic yards of fill. And still we have the FEMA CLMRF and LOMRF approvals pending.
So
For that,
here-
we've identified moderate impact.
Yeah, moderate, sounds like it would be okay. We can also, similar to what Dominic was suggesting with the previous item, these approvals generally, I don't think, really come until further along, usually even past the secret process. They're usually, so for instance, the approval that we'll probably give after we make a determination of significance probably will be a preliminary site development plan approval to start with, and that could be a condition of that preliminary approval probably. There's another, there were two different FEMA, yeah. One is the
Conditional fill and letter of map revision.
right, the map revision one, I think, usually comes after the construction. So that would be before a CO is issued, probably. So the first one, for the fill, would be something that could be a condition of preliminary site plan approval, I think. So we could put a note, something to that effect. But I guess moderate sounds okay.
Item number 6, impacts on air and climate. We've identified no impact. Item number 7, impact on plants and animals. We've identified yes, with all small impact except for item number 8, which is the proposed action may cause reduction in the population or loss of individual of any threatened or endangered species listed in the New York State or federal government to use the site or are found on, over, or near the site. For that, we've identified small impact. For item number B, the proposed action may result in the reduction or degradation of any habitat used by any rare, threatened, or endangered species. We've identified moderate impact.
I guess my question would be, why wouldn't we indicate small impact on that one as well? So instead of moderate.
What caused the small impact?
Let's go. So that might have been, that probably should have been a no impact.
Yeah, I'm searching for a threatened species or a endangered species that may be impacted by that. I don't know. We haven't,
Let's see. So
I haven't
was,
seen any documentation on it.
So was the timber rattlesnake one of them?
I think there was a list, but I believe small impact may be appropriate. I'm not sure if the applicant wants to.
Yeah, maybe the applicant.
Sure, yeah. So in our environmental assessment report, we do document kind of every species that shows up on the natural heritage program list, and we have a endangered species habitat assessment report there that kind of goes through the timber rattlesnake, Indiana bat, northern long-eared bat, bog turtle, and other significant natural communities, and documentation from field visits as well as coordination with the DEC and natural heritage that there's nothing on site or within 200 yards of the project site.
But I think the project still includes potential mitigating measures such as the tree clearing,
That's
time
correct.
of season cutting.
Right.
So I would change this from the moderate to the small impact box.
Small impact.
It's recognizing that it's there, but the impact is small. Okay.
Item number J, also small impact. The proposed project would remove approximately 6 to 7 trees and alter regulated wetland habitats. Several protected species have been identified in the vicinity and may be affected by the proposed development. Small impact.
Yeah, so that's consistent with the other two, I think.
Item number 8, impacts on agricultural resources. We've identified no impact. Item number 9, impact on aesthetic resources. We've identified yes to potential impact, with potential moderate to large impact for item number C. The proposed action may be visible from publicly accessible vantage points year-round. So that was moderate.
I'll wait till you get through the whole
Okay.
category.
Item number D, I, routine, the situation of activity in which viewers are engaged while viewing the proposed action is routine, travel for residents, including travel to and from work, and also recreational or tourism-based activities. We've identified moderate impacts for both of those. Item number E, the proposed action may cause a diminishment of the public enjoyment and appreciation of a designated aesthetic resource. Moderate impact, moderate to large impact. And item number G, other impacts. The proposed project is located within the designated scenic gateway corridor and would introduce approximately 39,000 square feet of warehousing on land currently occupied by an open golf course. Although views of the site from Route 9 and Interstate 84 are intermittent, the project would substantially alter the area's visual character by converting open space into industrially developed land. Loss of existing open space landscape replaced with warehouse and trailers, etc. That we've identified as moderate impact.
I think you also had A checked as moderate. I don't think you mentioned that one.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
A as well. The proposed action may be visible from an officially designated federal, state, or local scenic or aesthetic resource. That is also moderate impact. Thank you.
So, see, my approach to all those that you're indicating is moderate, based on the extensive work that was submitted by the applicant and the design work that went into the building and the landscaping plan, I would consider all those things as small impacts as opposed to moderate. But that's just me.
Yeah, this is, again, some of my previous comments were associated with this particular perspective. I don't think there's anything wrong with this I think the statement in G is absolutely correct. It's just now a question of perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my own personal view is when you take away open space and replace it with a warehouse, a 389,000 square foot warehouse, that does have a moderate impact. And there's just no way other than significantly reducing the square footage and maintaining as much open space as possible that you could reduce, in my mind, reduce that from moderate down to small.
Also, I'll just reiterate that the proposed warehouse would be, in effect, less visible than the already approved warehouse on the adjacent site that is right on Route 9. So that's something to consider. You have to kind of consider the whole character of that developed area in addition to the undeveloped golf course. Or, I mean, it's a golf course. It's a developed golf course, but not developed with too many buildings. So it's a change, but to me, the magnitude is more in the small category than even moderate.
Well,
But-
it's the same thing with the fill. That's why I made the point earlier that there has been a significant amount of disturbances to that entire general area over the last 100 years. And not the least of which is fill that had been brought in to construct the original shopping center, which was then converted into what there is now, what is there now. And this particular project needs to be considered in conjunction with that history, and then that consideration is what dictates the perspective of whether you consider this a moderate or large impact.
So here, hold on, here we might be getting into the question of significance almost more than whether it's a small, moderate, or large impact. Because again, remember, these categories of small, moderate, or large are just kind of standard boxes you have to check, but significance you have to elucidate in the Part 3 analysis, which will be the next step. So I disagree on putting it in the moderate category, but if others think that moderate is more appropriate than small, so be it.
Can we say, I mean, I kind of agree with Kevin on this one, but I agree with you on the others. It could be small. Because it is a big change, and that is a gateway. You know, we keep talking about the gateway to Fishkill. So
make G moderate and everything
Yeah.
else small.
Yeah.
You're also going to be able to see it from 84, which you couldn't see anything now.
Yes, it will be visible from 84.
Yeah.
And also visible from Route 9.
So I don't mind Anthony's suggestion of keeping G as moderate
everything else small.
and all the others small. What do you think?
Sounds good to me.
Is that all right? Any objections to that?
No.
Okay.
I do want to point out that may contradict with item number 9A. If 9A is small and 9G is moderate, those two are basically saying the same thing.
So designated federal, state, or local scenic or aesthetic resource may be visible from, yeah, I get that point. So let's make that moderate.
So I'll make the rest no impact or small impact.
Yeah.
Small,
And A and G be moderate.
Okay.
I think C could be mitigated as well by additional landscaping actions on the part of the applicant. So some of that can be discussed in section 3.
Yeah, there should be a lot of enunciation of this particular item in the Part 3. Okay.
Item number 10, impact on historic or archaeological resources. We've identified no impact. Item number 11, impact on open space and recreation. We've identified yes, with moderate to large impact on item number B11. The proposed action may result in the loss of current or future recreational resources. We've identified moderate to large impact on item number C. The proposed action may eliminate open space or recreational resources in an area with few such resources. We've identified moderate on item number D. The proposed action may result in the loss of an area now used informally by the community as an open space resource.
Okay, some of the way these questions are phrased aren't really quite appropriate for our situation. So working backwards up the list, D, proposed action may result in loss of an area now used informally by the community as an open space resource. I think that's a no, because it's not used informally, it's used formally. And the other questions deal more with formal use. So I think D should probably be no impact.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
Working back up further, C, proposed action may eliminate open space or recreational resource in an area with few such resources. I think that actually could be no or small, because there actually is substantial amount of state parkland on really both sides of the property, so.
Yeah, I think it could be small.
So this is sort of the key in with, if this was like the only resource available in miles, that might be something to check, but that's really not the case here.
Yeah, we got the park up the road.
So, I mean, I could go with small impact there, but not moderate or large. And then to B, proposed action may result in loss of a current or future recreational resource. Well, yes, that one. That is a golf course which is used by the public. So I don't know whether it should be small impact or moderate. Maybe keep the moderate one on that one.
Yeah, I would say keep them moderate, right?
Yeah.
Item number 12, impact on critical environmental areas.
Before we move on to 12, I just wanted to just remind the board that we are willing to dedicate the trail easement. So at least half the site is still going to remain as open space. It's not going to be developed. And a portion of that we're offering to dedicate to the town as a recreational resource for a trail to connect to the adjacent state park.
Yeah, so we should make a note of that somewhere here and then expand on that in the part 3.
So I'll identify item number E, other impacts, and it will be a positive impact, but I will identify small impact and note the applicant intends to dedicate a portion to. Do you mind just going over your description of your dedication? Sure.
There is an area on the north end of the site plan that is marked as being offered for dedication to the town for a trail easement to connect to the adjacent state park.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So what would we mark that as?
So for that one, it will be a small impact, but it will be a positive impact. So for part 3, we will expound on the potential positive of this impact.
Okay.
Item number 12, impact on critical environmental areas. We've identified yes, with small impact on item number B. The proposed action may result in a reduction in the quality of resources or characteristics which was the basis of designation of the critical environmental area. Small impact. Item number 13, impact on transportation. We've identified yes, with all small impacts except for item number F, other impacts. The proposed warehouse would contain approximately 388,000 square feet and include 57 loading docks, plus 81 trailer parking spaces and 260 employee parking spaces. For that, we've identified moderate impact.
So here again, I would suggest the possibility of eliminating moderate and going to small impact. And that's based on the traffic and parking studies that were submitted by the applicant that basically demonstrate that the site and the surrounding transportation system can can adequately handle the traffic and the parking. So although it sounds like it might be a larger impact than that because of the size of the building, the actual use and the generating characteristics of it, I think, are smaller than you might think.
Item number 14, impact on energy.
Is that?
One more question on item 13A. Are we still talking about the extra lane? And how do we ensure that that discussion is inherent in one of these points on transportation? So the projected traffic increase may exceed the capacity of the existing roadwork seems to me a point that might be moderate, given the fact that our recommendation is that we add a turning lane.
Well, I think that's just the opposite. The turning lane actually was discussed and then, in effect, approved by the planning board and under consideration by the DOT with the other warehouse, which is now going to serve 2 warehouses for safety purposes.
Okay.
So it's the addition of the turning lane really shouldn't be looked at as it's necessary because there's going to be so much traffic. It's more the existing traffic pattern at that particular point where the lanes of Route 9 southbound go virtually from 3 quickly down to 1 right at this site entrance. And so the turning lane really is an accommodation, hopefully by DOT, to ensure that trucks that are slowing down and not continuing southbound will be able to not get in the way of other traffic that's jockeying for position to race down Route 9.
I understand that, and to me, that represents increased traffic, certainly increased truck traffic, and that increased truck traffic requires some safety considerations, one of which is adding a lane to assure safety. So it's comme ci, comme ça.
I think the small impact really is more relevant in this one, but we could definitely add a reference to that southbound turning lane as being incorporated in conjunction with this and the adjacent project. And then that certainly could be expanded in the Part 3.
Item number 14, impact on energy. We've identified yes with small impact for item number D. The proposed action may involve heating or cooling of more than 100,000 square feet of building area when completed. Small impact. Item number 15, impact on noise, odor, and light. We've identified no impact. Item number 16, impacts on health. We've identified no impact. Item number 17, consistency with community plans. We've answered no. Item number 18, consistency with community character. We've identified yes. With all small impacts or no impact except for item number G, which is moderate impact, moderate to large impact. The proposed warehouse would introduce substantial building mass that would alter the site visual character and increase visibility from surrounding areas. Additional visual impacts include new lighting, increased truck activity, and conversion of existing golf course and open space into an industrial development. For that, we have moderate to large impact.
I'd be okay with that if we specify moderate.
Yep.
Item number 19, impact on disadvantaged communities. This site is located within
Oh, do you want to just explain why this is something new that the board hasn't seen before?
So this application was submitted prior to DC's new form. However, because there's no approvals yet, we have decided to use the new forms, the revised forms, which have more questions as it pertains to climate change and just impacts on disadvantaged communities. For item number 19, we've identified yes, because the property is located within a zone designated as vulnerable based on a desk study conducted on June 25th, 2026. The rest are no impact except for item number 1, which is moderate impact. The project is potentially affecting disadvantaged communities identified as having comparatively higher burdens of vulnerabilities by the Disadvantaged Community Assessment Tool. I hope that makes sense.
What exactly
So,
does it?
yeah.
I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't.
Dominic, can you explain what that? I took the webinar. Debbie, can you explain what it means?
Nope.
Yeah, the New York
Dominic can do a very good job.
The New York Planning Federation just the other day held a wonderful
Very good.
update on the seeker regulations, which included this category on disadvantaged communities, as well as the next one on future physical climate risks. And after going through that, I still don't get it.
Yep.
And there was a question asked, I won't say by who, because we don't know, it was an anonymous question submitted to the presenter as to, is this supposed to simplify the seeker regs, or doesn't it really complicate them? And he kind of didn't really have a good answer to that.
Yeah, I think
you were
boards
attending
across-
that, weren't you?
Yes, I had to sign off about halfway through, but yeah, I think boards across the state are really kind of scratching their heads at how do we look at this. Disadvantaged communities have been identified statewide on their mapper tool based on census tract information. And there's a whole host of criteria that went into, further identifying whether even beyond census tract, whether that community is eligible as a disadvantaged community. So this project site does fall within the mapped area for a disadvantaged community. I think the question is whether the project is going to create or increase any pollution burdens on the disadvantaged community. So I think looking at, there's a whole host of, based on the project, the impacts that you can look at, right? Traffic for air pollution, if it was, a landfill, you would look to see, has this particular community already been subjected to a number of pollution burdens, and is this just increasing, or the existing pollution burdens? Here, I mean, we just talked about the traffic impact study demonstrating that there's no significant impact here in terms of traffic. We don't see this as being a site that's going to impact any pollution burdens on the community surrounding it. We've got Home Depot, we have the abandoned shopping center, which hopefully will become
That's
another
a high
warehouse
risk to
in
the
future.
community. Yeah, the abandoned shopping center is a high
Right.
risk.
Dutchess County Community College further north on the site, and then Interstate 84 and the park to our west.
So, Jennifer, don't these disadvantaged communities, this aspect, have like a separation into several subcategories of like lower risk and higher risk areas? Isn't that part of, or supposed to be part of the mapping system?
Yes.
Yes.
So there are two categories,
Thank
and this particular project falls within the more intense of the
The
two.
more intense?
Yes.
Yeah.
It falls within the areas of higher burden, which is the more vulnerable designation of the two.
See, that right there indicates to me that this is not fine-tuned at all to the actual on-the-ground community that they want to be talking about. Because if this were like a residential neighborhood next door, that would be one thing. But since this is an already developed commercial area, yes, it is currently open space, and there is a state park adjacent. But I think we have the flexibility to answer this in a slightly different way, like probably small impact might be more appropriate than moderate or large, as you did under the other impact category.
So small?
Yeah, and we're going to have to struggle with this as we go on into the years ahead, with which I'm sure this
There's
is
going
not
to
going to
be
fly. and it's-
litigation for years.
It'll be another 10 years where we have to live with this probably, and then something else will happen. But anyway, we can handle the check marks any way we want. It's discretionary. So I would
Until told otherwise, yes.
I would, as a discretionary matter, indicate small impact as opposed to moderate or large.
Item number D, we've identified as small impact. Since the applicant is unaware of the potential tenants, the applicant needs to confirm the type of warehousing and storage being proposed. The site is located within a higher burdens and vulnerabilities area. As such, we've identified small impact.
I also just added a note to myself, and maybe we can include this as a note, a reference that could be added to Part 3, that the applicant has responded to this in their response letter of 6/24/26, which Jennifer outlined, with general types of warehouse and storage uses anticipated in their market studies. So it's not like there hasn't been any information. It's just that we won't know for sure what's going to be in there until we have actual occupancy permits.
Item number 20, future physical climate risks. We've identified yes, with small impacts for items number A and B. A, the proposed action is vulnerable to damage to the projected 100-year flood. Item number B, the proposed action is vulnerable to damage from a 500-year flood. Both of those being small impact.
Yeah, that sounds okay.
That brings us to the end of
Wow.
the FEF Part 2.
Very good. Good job, Anisha. Thank you. Any questions or comments from planning board members as to what we just went through? And then I'm sure there'll be questions on the next step we have to take, but we'll get into that in a second.
No further questions. Good job, everybody.
Before we move to next questions, I want to summarize kind of what we have here.
Good,
We
okay.
have one area of large impact, and that's under item number 1, other. We have several areas under moderate impact, but primarily we have small impact. I'm just giving a generalized overview of where we are in terms of
Yeah.
the project.
No, that's good. And one other question, sort of a follow-up for the applicant team, is whether there's been any response from DEC at all about the proposed sewer force main proposal under the wetland. I think we asked that at the last meeting, but I'm just wondering if there's been any contact since then.
We did reach out. We haven't heard anything to date from the DC or any comment on that force main alignment.
How long do you think it takes for DEC to respond to that?
Give it another month or two. Who knows? Yeah, might be a bit, but we will. We'll keep pursuing that kind of thoughts from them, and that's just to get the boring under the wetlands. Is that take? Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, we'll keep going down that path.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. All right, Dominic, do you have any questions, comments, or suggestions?
Lord, no.
Thank goodness. I'm sure you might want to weigh in as we get further into the discussion.
Of course.
Dennis, any observations on any of the, more engineering-related aspects? I think Anisha did a great job of going through the list. All right. Well, so having reviewed, discussed, and revised parts of the draft EAF Part 2 tonight, and considering the EAF Part 1 submitted by the applicant as well, which we are supposed to do, and the supporting technical reports, the applicant's responses submitted to the board, and the overall project record developed during the planning board's review, And again, as I mentioned earlier in the meeting, I pretty much went back and looked through the record. There's a lot of information there. The board, as lead agency, will have to proceed with a determination of significance by adopting either a negative declaration, which would be a determination of non-significance, and that would end the seeker process, or a positive declaration requiring the preparation of an environmental impact statement. And I think Anisha actually explained that all pretty well in the memo that MJ submitted. So, as if you might not have noticed, I can tell you at this point I am leaning towards a neg deck. But I would like to hear from other board members based on, especially on our review of the EAF Part 2 tonight, about what your thinking is. So I'm kind of going to take advantage of my position as chair and go down that way first and just ask each one of you, Felix, starting with you. What do you think?
Before I answer that, I would like to ask Anisha.
Okay.
Has she changed any of her thoughts going over, because she was very strong in her ideas to have a positive deck on.
So my opinions will not be very direct.
Yep.
It's the board's choice to go either way. I feel like if the board decides to issue a pos deck, that can have a limited scope based on the areas of major concern or areas that you believe could potentially have significant impact. In terms of my opinions, I don't think it matters in this case. I feel like, you know, we presented the facts and it's the board's decision to go either way. But I do want to point out that if the intent is to gather more information, then a positive declaration would be appropriate. If the board feels that the applicant has provided enough mitigation to address the concerns that they had or that were identified in the Part 2 of the EAF, then a neg deck would be appropriate. So it's entirely up to the board.
Now do you want to express?
I'm sorry I wasn't very helpful. But
No, that was very helpful, actually. Or if you want to pass on to Anthony and come back to you later.
Yeah, I'm just,
But we're gonna have to decide tonight, basically, everyone.
I would just like to hear their mitigation for the large impact.
I think before we can answer that question, I think, and I don't mean to be facetious at all, but I think we'd like to hear a little bit more clarification from the board on exactly what the impact is, identified in number 1, item H. So the item that's been identified as large is this, that the proposed project would disturb approximately 24 acres through major site grading, including the importation of fill, the 305,000 cubic yards of fill, to raise the site by an average of 4 feet.
10 feet, correct.
Yeah, it says average of 4 feet, which I think is accurate, that it's.
No, we've corrected to 10 feet because.
It is, okay. And that the project also includes construction of the 388,800 square foot warehouse and would result in permanent wetland disturbance. So we've already gone in the reverse. The board has already determined that there's either no or small or moderate impacts on the wetland disturbance. So I would, that couldn't possibly be a large impact here. And then in terms of the site grading over the 24 acres and the importation of fill, this is the category here is the impact on land. So I think we just need to understand what is the actual environmental impact that the board is concerned here that they've identified as large.
Oh, and actually, I'm glad you pointed out the part about the wetland disturbance, because that showed up in another place where it was small, I think.
Right, right.
Because the only area of wetland disturbance
is the access driveway.
Is basically the entrance drive, and a very small area of, I
Right.
think it's just the buffer area, isn't it? Or is there?
There
there's
are
a-
some direct wetland
a
impacts.
small part of the wetland.
Yes, there's some temporary and some permanent, but it is to improve the existing driveway that currently cuts through that
Yeah.
wetland.
I do want to add that we don't want to lose the point about the fill. I think the fill is the more important point there, more so than the wetland that we cover in other sections.
Yeah.
So I believe the fill being the 305 cubic yards that it is, and the potential for the 10-foot change in grade, that's the areas of potential large impact.
Right, but then impact to what? Impact to
Land.
water,
That's
I
an
guess
impact on
I'm
the
struggling
land.
to understand how we would mitigate for that, or how we would, like what the impact to land is.
Before
I
we
mean,
get
it's a
answers
currently
from the board
disturbed
members.
site.
So I didn't think it should be large, but before we get answers, can we strike the wording "and would result in permanent wetland disturbance"? Because it's not, that would not be in the large category, and we already classified it as a smaller category, and this is in the impact on land category anyway, so the wetland reference, I think, should come out there. Having said that, and if you do that, others can answer why you think the impact was large, because I can't answer that.
Can we not say that it's large and still give it a neg deck?
Well,
Yes.
You could, but you would have to elucidate on why the impacts are
It's
not
10,000
significant.
trucks of soil, it's large, but
Well, this is the point, this is the nuanced point, and I'm sorry, I would wait my turn here, but
No, go ahead.
the nuanced point is this significant, and is it a large impact? To me, and I made this point earlier, having a vision of impact on land with a 10-foot increase in elevation to what is currently a golf course, and the visibility of that to the community represents, in my view, a large impact. Now, there's mitigation efforts in place to mitigate some of that, and so the result may or may not be significant. That's something that we need to discuss. But the impact, to me, and it's to get to the nuances, the impact, the large impact is associated with, and this is potentially the difference between a positive and a negative declaration as well. It is the 10,000 truckloads, 389,000 cubic yards of fill, and the perception that the public will have, and again, this is nuanced, I understand, but that the perception that the public will have that this is a significant, large impact to the entire general area. And so
again-
my view, those are arguments for a positive deck. There are counter arguments for a negative deck, and I can argue those as well. So it's a perception issue.
I would not say it's a perception issue in terms of the public's perception. That should not be, I don't believe, the consideration of the planning board in terms of whether it's going to be a significant impact or not. We're going to get plenty of comments from the public on all kinds of projects. This may or may not be one of them. We may not get as many public comments about it as you think we might. It depends entirely on, how the public is going to react to it. But we won't know that until we have some participation. And so far, there hasn't really been any of that, unless you've heard people talking about it. Have you?
Well, sure. I mean, it's throughout the community. People are discussing the golf course being replaced by a warehouse. But that, again, that doesn't necessarily have an impact on the
Right.
technical aspects of what we're deciding.
Exactly. And why is that we have a proposal for developing the golf course with the warehouse? a question I'll answer. It's the zoning.
Yeah, that is beyond,
Yeah,
what
That's
I'm
be-
arguing for here is.
That's beyond the planning board's jurisdiction, but it's something we have to work with.
Yes, we have to work with that. So I understand that what our objectives are as a planning board, but I can be had here because of all of the work that the applicant has done, that the result of these large impact may become much less significant as a result of mitigation measures being introduced by the applicant. But that's as a result of us as a planning board doing the necessary work that we need to do to ensure that the environment stays safe, or maybe safe is the wrong word, with minimal impacts to the environment.
I do want to point out that having a large impact does not mean it's going to be positive. Having a large impact gives the applicant the opportunity to provide us with mitigation measures that could show us and the public how they're addressing these concerns. So don't be scared off or intimidated by the word large impact, because that does not mean it's going to be positive or a positive declaration.
I think that's what I'm trying to say. I think what the amount of fill, the 10 feet, it's large.
Okay, so
It is.
the next question, because of what I actually was asking the board to start talking about now, is whether that large impact translates into significant impact.
I don't think so.
Okay, so that's what I want to hear from people. It's not that you don't think so, but what do you think?
No, I think it's a large impact,
Yes.
but I am on the side of a negative declaration.
Okay.
Which
that's
is what you were polling the
That's what the
board
question
for.
is, yeah.
Correct.
Fred?
I don't know what to say. So, you guys are covering it. You go back and forth, back and forth. I can't imagine that many trucks on the road, day and night. And that's the question we're gonna have, is how it's gonna be delivered, how long it's gonna be delivered, has an impact. But
Well, again, that's why we look at the traffic impact study for that. And we had our, I think it was our, probably our previous consultants before MJ started. Or were you involved in that?
we didn't look at it for the truck deliveries, I was believed.
Yeah, we looked at
We
truck
did for the
traffic, of
truck
course we
delivery-
did.
oh, just for the normal truck deliveries, not for the bringing in the soil.
I believe the traffic impact
I
study must have
agree with
addressed the truck,
We
the
did see it.
fill.
We did not,
No, we
we
did not
did
see it.
not talk
What they
about
gave us
the
a
actual
study is
10,000 trucks.
What happens when the warehouse is open? And that was their study. And I don't believe, I could
Okay.
be wrong.
Let's ask the applicant, because I know I've seen it somewhere, and you can tell us where that is.
Yeah, so I believe this was a request, I think, 2 years ago or so. We did include the construction traffic into the roadway model, and that's all in there. So that it does weigh both construction and full operation of the site in that.
Well, you just said it, but I don't know, I didn't have any idea it was gonna be that many trucks in my own head at that time. And
Right.
there's a lot of trucks at one time going in for X period of time, because I'm sure you're gonna have it, I know we said you can't do it all at once, you had a segment when we're doing it. All right, you can only do a portion at a time, I remember that. All right, but again, I never visualized, how many trucks a day would that be? And that's what I'm getting at.
But I think what Owen just mentioned is that the traffic impact study that you have that demonstrates that there's no significant impacts includes that truck traffic in it, in the model. So that was incorporated at the request of the board to incorporate that into the model in the traffic impact statement that you have before you.
Yeah, that's what I recall. So again, with this kind of a project that's been before us for 2 years,
I understand.
it's difficult to take in all the information, but I made a purposeful hunt of all the information and did my best to try to look back through significant items, not in the significant impact sense, but the major items that we might be talking about tonight, and traffic impact study was one of the big ones.
Well, I agree with that, but again, I just, like I said, in my mind, and I remember how we said it was going to be segmented, that
Yeah.
I think 3 or 4 sessions, for that, how much they can do.
Yeah.
But I had no idea it would be, I thought they were just going to fly over and dump the dirt.
Yeah, they'll just.
That would be interesting.
Until you get, till you get to it.
That might have its own impacts on the
That
application.
might be.
But this truck traffic
It
is
also-
temporary though, right?
Yeah.
It'll be,
Yeah, the construction traffic impact, the truck traffic
there's
will be
fill,
temporary.
the 10,000 trucks,
Yeah.
whatever will be.
Right.
And it is temporary. The construction truck traffic is temporary. It's not a permanent situation, obviously, that's going to be maintained throughout the use of the site. It's temporary.
That's a good point. So that's another significance criteria, really.
How temporary it is.
Yeah, well, the whole construction of the project is supposed to be 12 to 18 months or something like that?
I believe that's correct, yes.
So that would be, and the fill itself would be, less
The
than
fill
that.
itself will be like what? The rest of the construction traffic is not good with that high.
Right.
Whereas the fill traffic related to the fill will be
Yeah.
the high peak.
The highest volumes of truck traffic, yes.
So how long will that high?
I think it's going to depend on the hours of construction and whether they have the trucks going continuously each day or whether it's going to be
Well,
staggered
quite
over
honestly,
time.
The hours of construction, because we're not really, there's no residential in the area.
Right.
So we're not disturbing people
I know that.
overall. So they
Right.
can do earlier in the morning till later at night overall.
The trucks will be
That's-
going up and down the roadway for
But they're going
quite a
to be,
considerable amount of time, so when you say no disturbance,
well, at
there
5
is a
o'clock.
disturbance going up Route 9 or 84 or down,
At 3 o'clock, going
Mostly
through the
they'll be coming
village,
from
but I
84, I
don't think you're going to go through.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't know
basically,
about
that was
that.
part of the traffic impact study.
So it won't affect any residential area.
What are the criteria for a conditional letter of map revision? Because
I'm
you're
gonna turn to
looking, it's to request a letter of map revision, seems to me that there's a criteria that requires that.
That's right, yeah. So to build anything out here on the site needs to be raised to about 3 feet above the base flood elevation, which I think is 207 feet. So we need to get that building pad to 210 feet to follow building code and get it out of the floodplain. So if you build anything on this site, it needs to be raised to that 210-foot elevation. So to do that, you need to go through the conditional letter of map revision process with FEMA to get it out of the floodplain. So that's just a building code requirement in essence.
So to me, that, again, is raising it, I remember 289,000 cubic feet of fill 2 years ago. We're at 305,000 cubic feet now. So there's been some changes associated with the traffic associated with that difference, right? So there's some changes since then. And then I understand the criteria now that you explained that associated with trying to get that letter of map revision due to fill. But again, to me, that's another consideration that says this is a large action.
So, Kevin, maybe you could answer the question of, with that particular item, do you think that large transfers into significance in terms of seeker, the specific seeker term of significant impact? Or does that large, based on what we learned from the traffic impact study and the other responses provided by the applicant, does that not even mitigate, but does that equate to a neg deck approach for that item?
To me, we're impacting something that is a natural resource that we as a community have access to. And I think that initially we have, that impact is large. So we have a potential large environmental impact.
But
is that large environmental impact significant from a secret point of view?
That's what we have to answer tonight.
And I understand that. And to me, it is significant. Looking at it from the outside in, as well as looking at it as a planning board member. It's a significant. So there's a certain, and that significance is recognized, I think, by some of the actions that we're asking the applicant to help mitigate.
Okay, so not to cut you off, because we'll discuss this some more, but so far on this side of the table, we've got two neg deck approaches, two unknowns, and one pos deck approach. Let's go over here. All right, Ravi, you're next. And this, this is based on what we've been discussing, but, just what is your gut feeling in terms of whether there should be a neg deck or a pos deck, which would require an EIS, of course.
No, we discussed all the items that are moderate to large impact. But I still, based on all the information, I think I lean towards the neg deck.
Okay. How about you, Bob?
Kind of in the camp of like where Kevin is, that you had something in a resource for over plus 40 years that was open land, whatever. And what the aspect of, they can, I understand the part about developing in the codes and everything else, but it is a large impact in the fact that the amount of fill, where they're going to secure the fill, to bring the fill over, and just questions of the perception, like he's right. It's not something that's, I see as a small or no impact. I see it as it's a large impact.
Okay, but again, we're stuck on that word large. Let's see if we can unstick ourselves from large. Is that significant or not a significant impact? Based on, so again, Dominic, if we need Dominic to repeat the criteria in seeker, that's what we're talking about tonight. Would that help to go through those again?
I feel it is, but that's...
You feel it is a significant impact?
It's a significant impact, yeah.
I do want to add something else before the board decides. Having a significant impact at this stage does not mean the project cannot go on. It simply means the applicant will need to review these, whatever scoping you decide. The applicant will need to go into more detail with those areas and provide alternatives and more mitigation. So do not feel like issuing a pos deck means the project ends. It just means you have these particular areas that you need more answers to. So again, it's up to the board to go either way, but just understand that a pos deck at this stage does not mean it's the end for the applicant. It just means you need more information and the applicant needs to provide more alternatives.
If I could say one thing in response to that, I agree, yes, it doesn't mean that the project ends from a procedural standpoint. However, when you do, if you are to issue a positive declaration, finding there is a significant adverse environmental impact, you need to clearly enunciate what that impact is so that it can be studied. So far, I've heard from the two board members who seem to be leaning towards a significant impact, that the golf course is a natural resource that the public has access to. And that, another concern is the open land converting the open land to developed land, and public perception. So obviously, perception of the public is not something that we can study. That wouldn't be an appropriate basis on which to issue a positive declaration. Furthermore, this golf course, it is open land in the sense that it has a very limited amount of buildings on it, but it is a developed site. Golf courses are, by their very nature, even though they're mostly grass and trees and sand traps, right? That it is developed. That is not a virgin site or native site. That land has been worked over time. The public has access to it because it is a public golf course, but it is still private land. It's not municipal land. So I just the point I wanted to make was that for those who are thinking about a significant impact, we need to be cognizant of identifying exactly what that impact is. And I've been listening very carefully, trying to figure that out, and it's been difficult.
Yeah.
One last thing I need to add as well, I'm sorry. If you decided to go the route of an EIS, there'd be a scoping and a public hearing required, so that would give the public an opportunity to weigh in before making a decision. Either way, it's the board's decision to go positive or negative. We're just giving you the information. If you decided to go positive, the public will have the opportunity to weigh in.
Well, the public will weigh in anyway, right?
Yeah, I know, public hearing will always.
John?
The public will be weighing in.
We'll have
The question is whether it would be during the seeker process through an
Or not.
EIS, or whether it would be basically once a neg deck is adopted by the board, and then a public hearing would be held. But the public hearing, with all the various elements of the site development plan that we've been talking about, to me, it doesn't necessarily matter whether it's part of the seeker process or part of the site plan process. It's still basically the project.
Recommendation?
Any further thoughts, Felix?
Yeah, I think they've done a good job to try to mitigate everything, so I think I can go on neg deck on this.
Okay. How about you, Fred? We've got basically 4 neg deck, 2 pos deck, and now 1 remaining undecided.
If you're looking at me, I have no problem.
With
A negative deck.
a neg deck, okay. So it looks like we have 5 in the category of neg deck and 2 in the pos deck. Okay, that's where I wanted to get us.
Okay.
So that now what I'm going to do is, since I haven't really verbalized why I thought it should be a neg deck, I'm going to read a thing that I put together here just to go through some of it that might actually help Anisha in drafting this once we do a resolution. But and as I mentioned, this goes back through the whole record of reviewing not just the EAF Part 2 and the EAF Part 1, but the whole, I wouldn't say I put the whole pile of stuff in front of me and read through every one, but I tried to pick out some of the major documents that we've been reviewing, and certainly a lot of the recent response memos that the applicant put together. So having said that, to me, one of the outstanding items, or not outstanding in terms of missing, but in terms of significance, was the applicant's revised proposal to connect public sewer appears to mitigate the previous concerns regarding potential impacts of the previously proposed on-site sewage disposal system on the underlying aquifer. That was a biggie for me. Our consulting hydrogeologist, Paul Rubin, has recommended that protection of the underlying aquifer as a potential future public water supply source is an important consideration. So now the applicant is offering a proposed recreational trail easement on the northern part of the site to the town and has indicated willingness to work with the town on the potential for accommodating future water supply considerations in that easement. The wetland buffer disturbances, we've talked about that, and the minor disturbances to the actual wetland are limited to a small area along the proposed entrance road. Concerns have been raised regarding the use of the site for a large-scale warehouse building. However, the proposal conforms with the use and dimension requirements of the existing planned industry district and is allowed as a use by right. This is a little different from some of the special use permit proposals we've seen, where you have to apply different additional criteria in order to approve a project. But here, it's basically just subject to site development plan review and then the other floodplain and wetland permits. So, it appears to be consistent with the goals and objectives of the town's comprehensive plan update also. And the applicant has provided general information about the possible types of warehouse uses that could occupy the proposed building. The traffic, we've talked about this, traffic and parking studies submitted demonstrate, as confirmed by the town's consulting transportation engineer, that the site and surrounding transportation system can accommodate the proposed levels of traffic and parking. Coordination is continuing with NISDOT and the adjacent property owner regarding the installation of the southbound turning lane on Route 9 into the proposed site entrance drive, which will improve traffic safety on Route 9. Impacts of the proposed warehouse on aesthetic and scenic resources and on the adjacent Greenway corridor along Route 9 have been addressed with appropriate building design and landscaping. The already approved but not yet built warehouse building to the east of the project site is closer to Route 9 than the current proposal and would partially actually screen Route 9 from full view of the Fishkill Commerce Center building. And finally, the existing golf course is a privately owned and operated recreation facility. It is open to the public, but the town's current planned industry zoning allows for development of the site with a warehouse or other large-scale industry or commercial use. So that's just sort of a thumbnail sketch of what went into my thinking, as well as all the other things we've been talking about. So, with all that, are we here at the point where we need a motion authorizing MJ to prepare a draft EAF Part 3 and a draft neg deck for the proposed Fishkill Commerce Center for the board's consideration at the next available meeting, which is likely to be September 10th, 2026, since we are contemplating canceling the August meeting? Would somebody like to move that?
So move.
Anthony moves it. Is there a second?
Second.
Felix seconds it. Any further discussion or other questions about it? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
Any abstentions? All right, so we have 6 yes and 1 opposed. Very good. And how about this, everybody? Now that we have indicated that we would like to see a neg deck put together for probably September, although we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of the meeting. Should we schedule a public
Yes.
hearing on the proposed project? And in this case, I would say, why don't we do it on September 10th,
Yep.
2026 at 7 p.m. or as soon thereafter as possible. So, so we're having some good feedback on this. Anisha, what do you think about, so, I mean, it obviously will be contingent on going through the draft neg deck and adopting that before we would hold the public hearing. So actually, it might not be at 7 p.m. in this case.
Both can happen in the same night.
They can happen at the same night, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, what comes first, the chicken or the egg?
we cannot do public hearing before the adopting the neg deck?
It's not advisable,
So it's not
right,
required,
Dominic?
it's not required for you to do a public hearing as part of seeker since it's not a positive at this point. So the board has the option to do the public hearing, or you can do part 3 AF first. As long as you're not making any decisions or granting any approvals before seeker is completed. So it's really up to you, board, what is preferred.
One of the difficulties, and challenges that the board will have if you adopt a negative declaration on the same night and before you have a public hearing. Majority of comments from the public are typically regarding impacts.
Yeah.
So,
If they show up.
you may get some residents wondering why they're even speaking on concerns that they may have when the board had already made a decision to deem that there are no significant environmental impacts associated with the project.
So can we do this? Can we actually hold the public hearing at 7 PM or as soon thereafter as possible, the first thing, and allow people to speak on whatever they want to speak to?
Yes, because the public may raise issues that you haven't considered, which-
And then, as we can do and have often done, is if necessary, keep the public hearing open.
You can.
And yet proceed to the draft neg deck.
Correct.
After the public hearing is opened and held.
If this helps with the scheduling conundrum, the applicant would have no objection waiting until your October meeting. If you want to handle the neg deck at your September meeting as the lone agenda item on this, and then schedule the public hearing for the October meeting, the applicant would have no objection to that.
Okay, that's a possibility.
So you want us to have a hearing in October, huh? You want me to come back here in October?
I think I'll probably be coming back here past October as well. And I'm happy to come here as many times as you need me to.
Let's see. Trying to wrap my head around this. What if we were to hold the public hearing in September?
Yep.
And as Dominic was saying, that would allow people to express their thoughts on virtually anything about the project. Keep the public hearing open. And then proceed based on, then we would have some public input, go through the draft neg deck at that meeting in September. But meanwhile, having held the public hearing open, can continue it at the October meeting, as opposed to holding it initially at the October meeting.
I'd rather do it that way.
Yeah.
Because I don't think anything's going to come up that's going to change anything. But
you never know.
You never know. And if somebody does come up with something that the applicant needs to answer, and we feel they need to answer, then, we could go through that process first, right? Does that make sense?
Sure.
Yeah. So I'd rather hear from the public in case they have something, I don't, they may have something that I don't know about, or that the applicant hasn't touched base on. Right?
Maybe there might not be enough public.
And there may be nobody come. May make it easy, so you don't know.
Right.
Right.
And
We can gauge that during the.
Right.
Yeah, if nobody shows up, well, we do that all the time,
Yeah.
based on what
Sure.
we hear
Sure.
or what we don't hear.
We
at
don't
the
have to
public
keep it
hearing.
open till October.
Yeah.
Right.
We may not have
So
to-
we can be prepared to keep it open if there is enough public input at the hearing. If it's relatively few people or minor comments, we could close the public hearing before proceeding to the neg deck, or keep it open until after we've done the neg deck, and then close it later in the meeting, even.
Sure.
So, we have a lot of options there.
Yeah, but I think we should have the public hearing in September.
Yeah, I think the sooner the better to have the
Yeah.
public hearing.
Yeah.
Agree.
At our next meeting, depending on
Yeah.
when that is, right?
Yeah, the
So-
next, I mean,
What we make.
we are assuming August meeting will not happen.
So do either of the attorneys on both sides have any,
No, sir.
any reason not to do what we're talking about?
No, I mean, I would just, say whatever is the least complicated, I guess, and consistent with your common practice for all your other applications
Yeah.
would be my preference.
I mean, the planning board has our own adopted rules and regulations where we even specifically say, on a case-by-case basis, the planning board can actually hold, we call it a public comment period to consider complicated seeker issues. And we've done that on occasion, just as a standalone thing, even before we get to a neg deck.
Right.
Here, we're sort of doing the same thing, except we're making it into a formal public hearing, which will be part of the required public hearing, since we would not be requiring an environmental impact statement. It wouldn't be part of the seeker process, but it could be before we make the seeker determination by adopting the neg deck.
Sure.
So we hold the formal public hearing, we see what happens, we go on to adopt the draft neg deck if it's drafted appropriately by Anisha, which I'm sure it will be.
Yes.
Or we can revise it during the
Right.
meeting if necessary, and then make a decision at the meeting as to whether to close the public hearing or leave it open.
Okay.
Okay.
So, based on that, is there a motion to schedule a public hearing on the proposed Fishkill Commerce Center on September 10th, 2026 at 7 p.m. or soon thereafter as possible?
So moved.
Fred moves it. Is there a second?
Second.
Kevin seconds it. Any further discussion?
One sign.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. And the public hearing sign, what do you think, Brad?
That's
since
the
you
only
brought it
place
up?
you can get it. You know, they have what, 50-foot right-of-way?
We have an easement over that
Is it
driveway.
I think it needs to be at the proposed site driveway, which is an existing driveway.
Yes.
Somewhere there.
As best you can near that driveway.
Yeah, at the existing golf course entrance road, entrance on Route 9.
Okay.
You want to put one on 84?
Nope.
No, not an 84.
No, we can't.
No, we can't.
All right. I believe we have done tonight an amazing job and can move on to the next item unless anyone has any other questions or concerns.
I'll just say thank you very much for all of your time tonight. Very much appreciated, and we're happy to move the application forward. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your input.
Thank you.
Anheimer Busch would be good.
Yeah, what do you have in
Now
your
it's in the
cooler,
cooler?
Fred?
There you go, cooler.
All right, give me a chance to straighten out all my papers here. And the next item will be 400 Westage, so just give me a minute here.
Good evening.
Hi. So let me just read the intro to 400 Westage Site Development Plan Amendment. Board to review the submission made by the applicant's representative on June 24th, 2026. A draft full environmental assessment form, Part 2. Oh no, here we go again. That's a joke.
I was hoping so.
I don't see too many people laughing.
This one's easy.
A draft FEF Part 3 and a draft neg deck, and to consider adopting and authorizing the chair to sign said documents. Okay, good to see you again, Karen. Why don't you just quickly update us? I think we already got some update, but anything else you want to add before we get into the reviews?
I don't think so. I mean, mostly that we listened to the questions at the last meeting and so sought to, illustrate on the plan with call-outs. Some of the questions you had about emergency exits and awnings and those sorts of things are shown more clearly in the renderings. We added the speed bump, which was a request, and we brought the architect to assist in any architectural questions that you might have.
We asked you to put on something in the back door. Did you guys add that in?
Fred, can you use
An
the microphone, please?
overhead.
Mike,
Fred, can you use the microphone, please?
Microphone.
Thank you.
We asked you to come back with something about the back door, I don't know if the back door, but the rear door, about an overhang for the, so people were coming in and out. I don't know if you did that.
Yeah, I do believe we have provided awnings at all the entrances and exits.
Yeah, there's an awning here. Is this the rear door that you're talking about?
Yes, and I didn't
I
see
think
the
that
reason.
he's
I didn't
probably
see
talking
it.
about the bus drop off, I think.
But you may have added it somewhere, I didn't look.
The bus goes
Yep.
around the building and drops off.
One at the bus stop. Oh.
You did say people would be waiting inside, but still,
This is
it
the,
was
Yeah.
is
that-
this on the western
that door.
side?
Right, yep, that one there.
And we were just saying should have something,
Exactly, right? It'll have the awning and it'll have lighting back there.
So is that what's shown on that
That's
drawing?
what's shown.
Right.
So it's there,
Shown
Fred.
the awning.
That's the western.
it's a very small one.
I better look on this.
Yep.
So that image corresponds with, sorry, let me-
And there are call-outs added on sheet C130, according to your cover letter. What is sheet C130? What is the title of that sheet?
That's the site plan. So
Yeah.
that's, sorry, that's the one we're on right now. So I think this is the side that we were just showing where there's an awning right here. And you see it says awning right where my hand is.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, Fred?
Okay.
All right. Dennis and Anisha, do you want to go through the MJ's memo of July 7th?
Engineering, I think they addressed all the previous comments, and then we just had noted the seeker and then the variances that, they're the waivers that they're requesting. That was the gist of our letter. Very short letter.
Okay. All right, then, Anisha, do you want to go through kind of go through all the different draft seeker documents? You could start with the EAF parts 2 and 3, and then go right to the draft neg deck, and then we could ask questions or make comments after you do that.
Sure.
Or if there, I guess as you're going through the draft EAF, we'll do the same thing. If anyone has any question or wants to make a change, do it with each section.
Sure. Item number 1, impact on land, we've identified yes, with one area of small impact being H, other impacts. The construction and expansion may result in a small impact on land, small impact. Item number 2, impact on geological features, we've identified no impact. Impacts on surface water, we've identified yes, with all no impact except for item number I, which is other impacts, small impact associated with soil erosion and stormwater discharge. For item number 4, impact on groundwater, we've identified yes, with all being no impact except for item number H, other impact, located over a primary aquifer, but connected to municipal sewer within the aquifer overlay, so small impact. Item number 5, impact on flooding, we've identified yes, with small impact for item number A and B. The proposed action may result in the development in a designated floodway. Item number B, the proposed action may result in development within the 100-year or 500-year floodplain. Number 6, impact on air and climate. We've identified no impact. Item number 7, impact on plants and animals. We've identified yes. With there being small impact on other, the presence of endangered species, habitat, with small impact. Item number H, impact on agricultural resources, no impact. Item number 9, impact on aesthetic resources, no impact. Impact on historic and archaeological resources, yes, with small impact being item number C under 10. The proposed action may occur wholly or partially within a substantially contiguous to an archaeological site not included in the New York State SHPO inventory.
What site is?
I think there's just a typo at the end of previously disturbed, but within an archaeological sensitive area instead of plural areas.
Yes. That being small impact. Item number D, SHPO provided a letter of no impact dated October 22, 2025. So that should be a small impact, but it's a positive impact. Item number 11, impact on open space and recreation, no impact. Item number 12, impact on critical environmental areas, no impact. Item number 13, impact on transportation, no impact. Item number 14, impact on energy, no impact. Item number 15, impact on noise, odor, and light. We have identified yes, with small impacts being during the construction phase for temporary construction noise impacts. Item number 16, impact on human health. We've identified yes, with all being no impact, except for other. Other impacts being small impact, medical office expansion, and the utilities are available. Number 17, consistency with community plans. We've identified no impact. Consistency with community character. We've identified no impact. Item number 19, impact on disadvantaged communities. We've identified yes, with all being no impact except for other being small impact. Property within DAC is identified as having comparatively lower burdens and vulnerabilities. Item number 20, future physical climate risks, no impact. And that brings us to the end of the draft FEAF Part 2.
Any questions or further comments on the Part 2?
No.
No.
And then the Part 3 was just basically filled in for a neg deck.
Yes,
So
should I go over the Part 3?
I don't think there's very much, I mean, go through I call it the draft neg deck, the analysis,
So based on what we have gathered so far, we have drafted a Part 3, which demonstrates the project will result in no significant adverse impacts on the environment, and therefore an environmental impact statement need not be prepared. Accordingly, this negative declaration is issued. Should I go over the non-significance?
Yeah.
So with that, we have drafted a notice of determination of non-significance for this unlisted action. The first area is impacts on land. Overall, we found a small impact. The project consists of the expansion of an existing medical office building within a previously developed commercial site and will disturb approximately 0.7 of an acre. The proposed action, as described above, will have a small impact on surface water. The plans indicate the total area of disturbance of the project will be less than an acre. As such, the scope of work is not subject to DEC design manual. Impacts on flooding. The lead agency finds the proposed action will not result in any significant adverse impacts on flooding. The project is not within any flood hazard or special flood hazard areas, according to panel 36027C0469E. Impacts on plants and animals and ecological communities. The project is located on previously developed commercial site proposed disturbance limited primarily to maintained landscaped areas adjacent to the existing medical office building. Number 6, the lead agency finds that the proposed action will not result in any significant adverse impacts to aesthetic resources or community character. The 2,400 square foot expansion is within an established business center and on previously developed commercial office complex located within the PSC zoning district. The project is not anticipated to result in any significant adverse impacts on transportation. The proposed project consists of 2,400 square foot expansion of medical office space. According to the traffic study that was done, estimates that the proposed expansion will generate approximately 74 vehicle trips during weekday morning peak hours and 94 vehicle trips during weekday afternoon peak hours. The lead agency finds that the proposed action will not result in any significant adverse impacts to human health. The impacts associated with human health may be positive. The project consists of the expansion of an existing medical office facility within a previously developed commercial site. Number 11, the lead agency finds that the proposed action will not result in any adverse impacts on community character or the achievement of adopted community plans. The proposed action will not result in any impact to geological features, air, agricultural resources, open space, recreation, critical environmental areas, is consistent with community plans, community character, and does not impact disadvantaged communities or future physical climate risks.
All right, any questions on the draft neg deck?
No.
Nope. All right. Dominic, any questions or comments you want to make? All right. So I'll separate two motions, one for the EAF parts 2 and 3, and then one for the draft neg deck. So is there a motion to approve the draft EAF parts 2 and 3 for the proposed 400 Westage Site Development Plan amendment as reviewed? I think there was one minor revision, and revised tonight, and authorize the chair to sign where appropriate.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Felix, seconded by Anthony. Any further discussion?
No.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So the EAF parts 2 and 3 are adopted. Is there a motion to approve the draft negative declaration for the proposed 400 Westage Site Development Plan amendment as reviewed tonight and authorize the chair to sign it?
So moved.
Robbie moves it. Is there a second?
Second.
Felix seconds it. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, so those all carry. Well, one more item we could do. This is optional for the board's consideration, but since we've gotten through the neg deck tonight, we might want to do a motion to authorize the planning board attorney to prepare a draft resolution of approval. So this would probably be for preliminary and conditional final approval, right?
Yes, sir.
For the 400 Westage Site Development Plan amendment for the board's consideration at the next available planning board meeting, which likely will be September 10th.
Okay.
Would someone like to move that?
So moved.
Second.
Felix moves it. Anthony seconds it. Any further discussion?
No.
Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. I think we got through that one a lot quicker than the last one.
Thank you very
Bob.
much. We appreciate it.
And thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks for hanging in there.
Yeah.
Thank you for rewarding the hanging in
Well, best of all, hopefully any traffic jam that was out there before isn't there now.
Thank you.
Yes.
Take care,
And
Neil.
thank-
Good to see you.
Thank you for putting off the public hearing. I know it wasn't just for us, but that that was nice since we arrived a little late, so we appreciate
Yeah.
that. Thank you. All right, have
Absolutely.
a great night. Thank you.
Thank you, you too. All right, so we just have a couple of items under other business that shouldn't take very long. One that we talked about a little bit at the beginning of the meeting is the cancellation of the August 13th, 2026 Planning Board meeting. So, again, neither of the Planning Board chair or the vice chair will be available to attend a meeting on the 13th, and with August and potential vacation conflicts, it's likely that a quorum of members might not be available either. So there are sort of two things we can do. Well, also, and we kind of did look, after last meeting, we huddled together and looked at alternative dates and possibilities of whether our consultants might be available as well, other dates. So one option we have is simply to cancel the August 13th meeting, with the next meeting occurring on September 10th. But the second option, should we want to consider it, would be to cancel the August 13th meeting, but request our beloved secretary,
I've already
Debbie,
done that, so you can go ahead and request right now.
to check on various things like availability of this meeting room and availability of people with schedules and the whole thing that can be a little bit complicated in trying to coordinate with everybody, but something we could try to do. So it's kind of up to the board as to what
The
your
only
preference
thing I will
is.
share before you decide what you're going to do is that the only date I would be able to get this room would be August 20th, which would be the Thursday after our scheduled
And the 1
meeting.
week.
And Pete can make himself available as far as the video conference. As far as everybody else, that's everybody else.
I would not be available that evening, and also I know that my colleague James Lindeman from my office is already out that evening as well.
And I would not be available that evening.
And also there is no application pending that has to be decided in August.
Yeah, there's other applications out there, let's put it that way, that this could affect, but from what we've heard.
They haven't made a submission yet, though.
Right.
Right.
Whoever that may be has not made a submission.
Right, right, I'm just saying
Because
that
there are
there's-
no submissions, yes.
Right, right.
And hearing from all the applicants tonight, where an August meeting might have been something important, ended up not being important to the current applicants in front of us.
So does that mean that we don't have any jeopardy by not making the board available for 2 months?
No, the board would be within its rights to cancel the meeting due to anticipated lack of quorum.
Okay. Okay, so that was my question.
So, I mean, basically, we could just go with a motion to cancel the August 13th, 2026 meeting, with the next meeting to occur on September 10th, 2026. Would someone like to make that into a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Oh,
There we go.
Felix moved it.
Felix got in there first.
We're trying to
Anthony.
get this.
Twins here.
Any further discussion?
No, sir.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So Debbie, you can make the necessary correction to the planning board meeting schedule
There's many things I need to do, but yes, that's what.
at your leisure at some point. Okay, so that's item number one. The other item under other business, which came up when we received a referral from the town board on a proposed local law. So this item is to discuss a timeframe and approach for reviewing and commenting on the town board referral of that local law, which has to do with expiration of site plan approvals. I myself, and all of us having received the local law on late Monday.
Correct.
I myself did not have time to even look through it. So I really am not able or willing myself to discuss it tonight because I don't really know anything about it. Some of you might have had a chance to look through it. And if you want to make any preliminary comments on it right now without getting into a lot of time and detail, you're welcome to.
I would like to, if I could.
Sure.
First, so I did take a look at it. I kind of agree with the spirit of the law and the intent to not have things sit. But I always feel that, sometimes you have a great idea, but it's the details that matter. And I feel that, I'm worried that the town board is just going to approve this without listening to anything we say. So I'm hoping that they, do wait. But there are certain things like there's, when you look at it, one of them says, all construction in conformance with the approved site plan has not been completed within 3 years of the date of approval. So what I'm worried about is what happens if there's construction and it's 70% complete and the 3 years lapses. Now what happens? The site plan now goes away and we have to redo everything. What happens to the construction that started? It could, 3 years, we could have a completely brand-new board. It could be, everybody here could be different.
Yeah.
And they could be looking at it going, I don't know if this even fits. And now you have something that's constructed maybe 70% through, and because the way they word it, it says in one part that it says, in no case shall the final site plan approval be extended beyond 3 years. In no case. That's very, very, I would say, strict wording where it says no case. So what happens in those cases? I feel that with this thing, there are a bunch of holes here that what's going to happen is it's going to end up coming back to the planning board at some point. And there'll be lawyers, and you know how it is. I hate to say this, Dominic, we love you, but 5 lawyers, 7 opinions, and they can make holes through this very easily, I feel. I feel that the idea makes sense, but I think they really need to look at this much more with a fine-tooth comb before they put it forward. I have other things, but I'm not going to go through it all, but I feel that we've gone through a lot of different things over the years where, even talking about the 3 years, what happens if it's the town board itself that's delaying the project? We have that. We know this has happened. We've had situations where things are going on, and so does that mean that the site plan goes away? So I think there has to be really some things that they have to look at. I'm also concerned about what if I'm an applicant and I would come in, I would say, don't give me final approval, give me preliminary approval. I don't want final. Give me preliminary for the next 3 years, because it's not final.
Yes, and that's
Right?
exactly, so like the town of Cornwall has a restriction where the site plan approval is only good for 1 year. So what happens is that applicants don't ask for it until they're ready to actually start
Right.
construction.
Yes. So, these are little things I think that the town board really needs to look at a lot better. And I think if we all have time to look at it, we should look at this law and give them.
I agree with you, Felix. I took a close look at it as well, and my thought here was, it almost requires us as a planning board to figure out a way how to deal with this document, because the spirit is right, but the details are folks that have no idea. It's obvious that it was drafted by folks who are not familiar with our process nor our ways of, policies and so on, so.
And I also had problems with it. Because again, my years sitting on this board, I see things take so long.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's not up to the applicant, it's taking all the time.
Yeah.
So the
But I also
question
have
is,
a problem with the people who got final approval, and they don't do anything with it.
Right, and I think
And that's the one I think that they're talking about.
Well, that's
what's
the
the
spirit of
motivation
it,
here?
right?
What was the motivation behind this? Do we know?
Well, motivation is something that,
Doesn't really
yeah, it doesn't matter.
Doesn't
You know, what I worry about is that it's gonna come back to us at some point, and then we're gonna have to try to figure out stuff, and I really think they need to really think about this more, because I think there are too many holes in this, and I'm hoping that the town board is listening and that they really take a good look at this. The idea makes sense, but, I think,
This also has a section about site plan approvals previously issued
Yes.
by the town at least 1 year prior to the enactment of this amendment. This
Yep.
is written with, in my mind,
Oh,
this
sure.
has been written with one project in mind.
of course.
Continental Commons. Sorry. I'll say it. It's been written with that in mind. That's what this is.
But is there a set deadline for this law to be approved? I mean, is there a deadline? I mean, the town.
Well, and the town board can approve it when they want.
They
They're
actually
really-
already opened the public hearing on this law at the last meeting, so
Yeah, and,
So are they planning to approve it in the next
Oh.
few weeks?
I can't tell you that, I don't know. Their next meeting is August 5th.
I know, so but,
Well, one thing the board could do would be to formally request more time to review and consider, amendments to the proposal.
No, I understand. But we have other projects too.
That's why I asked what the motivation
That's the money one.
can they push it out to
Should be asking Dominic, not me.
But that's what I'm suggesting is that you ask them for more time and tell them that you would like to consider it at your September meeting.
and I think that's the problem is whether they want to wait
They
till
may
we
not.
come back.
But
They may not.
that's exactly what I was going to suggest, what Dominic
Yeah.
said about, and I could basically make the request to
Sure.
both the town clerk and the supervisor, who are basically the key point people with this,
Yeah,
to indicate that the board has comments and concerns they would like to make, but we did not have adequate time. Some of the board members, such as myself, have not even had an opportunity to look through it at all. And as far as I know, none of us were involved in the drafting process or familiarity with what the town board has in mind with this law. So I would like to make a request that the town board consider allowing the board to meet and discuss this at the September 10th meeting, since we've canceled the August 10th meeting, and to send our comments as a whole board to the town board as soon as possible after the September meeting.
sure.
I'll tell you, if you have a big subdivision, sometimes it doesn't get done for 3 years.
Well, this is site plan, this is not subdivision.
Yeah, and this has to do with approvals, not
This is final approval.
construction. Once they get approval and they start construction, Dominic could talk to this more, but try to pull that approval away from them at that point, you're in trouble.
If it gets enacted as written, it'll likely lead to litigation, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure that that's a concern either, but.
Right.
But once final approval is granted, right, that's what the clock
Yes.
starts.
Yes, sir.
That's what they're trying to enact, yes.
And what if a site plan's amended?
Well, then it has a new date, right?
That's the question.
Theoretically, that would start the clock over.
But that's the question, right?
Yeah.
Because I even look at just like when what was it, Van Wyck News, when they came to us with that amended, I mean, basically, we had no say in what they almost like, but that site plan was how many years old?
Yeah.
Everything changed.
And that's actually an excellent point. You may see, like, if this gets adopted, or a version of it does, you may see as the timeline is running out, that
Yeah.
someone will come in and apply for an amendment.
Right.
They might just move the dumpster.
Yeah.
And say, well, we're going to pick up the dumpster here, we're going to put it over there.
Yeah.
Please now give me an amended approval.
Right. And so, yeah, a lot of little things like that I feel is gonna come up with this.
I could make a joke about that, but I will not get myself into trouble.
Yeah, don't get in trouble. Okay, that's all I want to say.
So, yeah, let's discuss in detail in September 10th.
Okay. I don't want to hold it
All right.
up anymore.
Okay, well, we'll hope that, we'll hope that they give us time to do it, but
That's
see.
why I'm asking, is there a set deadline for the town board is looking for to approve this?
all we know.
We don't know.
All we know is the town clerk
They didn't share that with us.
indicated to us that
The town board wants a response.
review and
by-
comment on or before July 22nd.
On or below, before
So they
July.
want the comments before their next meeting, which is August 5th.
Yeah. But they don't have to approve it, right?
They provide a time period for the board to provide comments, and then they can act after that. So the request would be for the town board to give you more time.
Yeah.
And I would hope that they would do that, given that we're in the trenches with this more than they are. You know, and I think we would know more than they would know when it comes to this.
Yes.
But, all right.
You're good. All right, I think that does it for that item. So now we know that the next meeting is scheduled for September 10th, 2026, with a submission deadline of August 26th, 2026. Anything else board members would like to bring up?
No.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay, what would that be?
Motion to
Fred?
adjourn.
Is there a second?
No. I oppose.
You don't abstain?
All in favor of opposing adjournment? Thank you, everyone. Good meeting.
So, John, you make a very
Nice.